and polls say they despise. As everyday Americans gear up to celebrate Independence Day, millions will soon be free from the bonds of affordable health care. We're starting today's show with you, opening phone and text lines. Have you managed to strike a balance between staying engaged and also making time to enjoy the summer? Can you have one with the other?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we're sticking with politics for author, political analyst, and frequent voice on MSNBC, Anand. For Americans who still believe it's bad and wrong to screw over the country's most vulnerable, what lessons can we learn from the Supreme Court and the so-called Big Beautiful Bill? Plus, a new morning for American progressives as they look longingly at New York's Zohran Mamdani. We'll get Anand's take on it all. That's next on the 11 o'clock hour of BPR on GBH and NAPM.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The Senate is considering amendments to the multi-trillion-dollar tax cut and spending bill backed by President Trump. Some Republicans are divided over several provisions. That includes proposed changes to Medicaid. Senate Majority Leader John Thune says the bill still protects vulnerable Americans.
The whole issue of what we're doing with the Medicaid program is to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse, make it work in the way in which it was intended, to cover the people for whom it was intended, and to make sure that we have work requirements included there.
But North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis said this weekend he could not back the GOP bill. He said it would mean billions of dollars in cuts to North Carolina and throw eligible people off Medicaid. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer highlighted Tillis's remarks.
Senator Tillis spoke candidly. He was one of the few truth tellers on the other side. The bill devastates his state, but make no mistake about it, it'll devastate the states of most every Republican here.
The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says the Senate version of the bill adds more to the deficit than the House version does. The trade agreement between the U.S. and Britain has taken effect, but Britain is still facing President Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. NPR's Fatima Al-Kassab reports from London. That's even though other U.S. tariffs are being lowered.
The tax on British car imports to the U.S. will now go from President Trump's initial 27.5% down to 10%. In exchange, UK leaders are getting rid of tariffs on beef and ethanol from the U.S. But tariffs remain at 25% for UK steel and aluminium imports, and could even double to 50% if the UK and US do not reach a deal by next week, when President Trump's 90-day pause on global tariffs expires, which the president has said he will not extend.
NPR's Fatima Al-Kassab reporting. California Governor Gavin Newsom has approved a budget deal for his state. It includes cutting back on health care coverage for immigrants without legal status in the U.S. who are in California. From member station KQED, Dana Cronin has more.
Last year, Governor Newsom expanded health care to all low-income people in California, regardless of immigration status. But now, with the state facing a $12 billion budget deficit, Newsom's budget deal walks that back for people over 18. State Senate Budget Committee Chair Scott Wiener says tough decisions had to be made.
It could have been enormously worse, and we were able to protect healthcare access for all undocumented people who are currently receiving benefits.
The new restrictions, including a new monthly premium for adults already enrolled in the system, take effect next year. For NPR News, I'm Dana Cronin in San Francisco.
On Wall Street, the Dow is now up more than 90 points. You're listening to NPR News.
And from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston, I'm Judy Ewell. State lawmakers are set to vote today on the $61 billion budget for the new fiscal year that starts tomorrow. The proposed spending plan wouldn't raise taxes, but it does increase state spending by about 6%. The state Senate's budget chief, Westport Democrat Michael Rodrigues, says the bill also calls for a study into raising the sales tax on building materials for apartment construction stalled by tariffs.
We want to everything we can to reduce the cost of housing, and we want to know what kind of impact, if any, will it make on housing production costs.
Governor Healey has 10 days to review the budget once it's approved by state lawmakers. This week brings the beach days. That doesn't mean it's safe to swim everywhere. The executive director of the Charles River Conservancy, Laura Jasinski, says you should not get into water in the Charles River.
Part of that is because we've done a lot to clean up the Charles River over the last several decades. And so while we've made strides, there's still work to be done to close the combined sewer overflows, which can release sewage into the Charles after really large rain events.
Boaters can get out in the Charles. Some 19 beaches are closed today because of unsafe levels of bacteria in the water. That's according to the State Department of Public Health. And sports, the Red Sox host the Cincinnati Reds at Fenway tonight. Summer weather as June draws to a close. A sunny, hot week ahead. Highs in the low 80s today. There's a chance of showers and thunderstorms Tuesday. Highs in the 80s. Right now, 77 in Boston. For more original reporting, visit gbhnews.org. He's Jim Brady. I am Marjorie Eakin. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're all here against our will, our collective will here, me and the rest of the staff, because Jim insisted that we have work this one day.
Well, yeah, in all fairness, we thought the Supreme Court was still going to have major decisions, and I'm a responsible news person, unlike you and our staff.
Some of us were more prescient and had a finer analysis, but in any case,
we're here nevertheless.
We're here today, and we are on vacation for the rest of the week, but we will have our best of playing back every single day. We'll be back live on July 7th, and the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, will be with us on July 9th. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie. So Trump's budget-busting mega bill is nearing a vote as we speak today. Altogether, it would add more than $3 trillion to the national debt. By some estimates, kick almost 12 million people off their health care. That's roughly the size of everybody in Illinois and almost all of the climate cleaning items that Joe Biden and others put into place. But since, as Marjorie suggests, I did cave to Marjorie's bullying, I guess you'd call it, allowing us to put the show on tape for the rest of the week. We're kicking off summer today. This is really the beginning of summer, July 4th week. Getting your thoughts on all the ways you're sort of balancing all this. Are you unplugging, turning out from all the bad news? Are you even able to fully do so? Or do you find yourself hunching over your phone in the bathroom, getting a quick fix of the doom and gloom before you go back for the family cookout, fireworks, and whatever annual summer tradition you do this week? So call us at 877-301-8970, call or text. And how are you balancing basically staying engaged enough to be a responsible member of this society, at the same time not allowing it to destroy your summer? And for those who are relatively new listeners, Marjorie and I are both huge summer advocates. We both love the hot weather. We both love the summer, but we're sort of news obsessed and Trump obsessed. So how do you find this sort of a hybrid existence to get you through the next couple of months? 877-301-89. So I can tell you what I'm doing, actually.
What are you doing, Jim?
I told you. By the way, Marjorie comes in today. Everybody on the staff was saying it literally looked like our whole family died. And it is true. This bill is maybe the worst piece of legislation, maybe in American history.
And I feel very lucky. I'm not on Medicaid. I'm not on Mass Health in Massachusetts.
But you breathe the air, don't you? No more.
I went to the beach yesterday.
Yeah.
And I have my cyanobacteria app to look at all the different places where you can't swim already because of climate change. That's the main. It's also fertilizers and it's also septic tanks, but that's in the lakes. And I went to the beach at the ocean at Craigfield Beach yesterday, and we were just talking about how long it's going to be able to swim in the water. How long are you going to be able to swim in the water
here? At least
till
September.
Yeah, at least till September. How long is this going to even last? How long before it disappears?
Not only are all the clean energy, and as Bill McKibben says, they're not alternate energy sources anymore. Not only all the clean energy tax credits gone, you know what they're doing, which was added to the bill? They're taxing those firms that are able to still continue this if they get any parts at all from China. It is a total, and by the way, you know what's incredible about almost all the stuff that came with the climate change stuff that Joe Biden signed in the Inflation Reduction Act? You know where the physical infrastructure of most of that is?
States.
Red states. So they're voting against the economic self-interest, not to mention the air and you breathe, the water you drink, of their own constituents.
What they'll do, and it's what they did with Lisa Murkowski, who's from Alaska, who was one of the holdouts, the senator, they gave exemptions to her rural hospitals, so her rural hospitals won't be shut down because they needed her to get on the bill.
Well, you see, Nancy Mace from South Carolina wanted the credits for the Mercedes EV plant exempted from all. So they're total frauds.
Did she get it?
I don't know if she got it.
Yeah,
but here's the
she
deal.
wanted it. And Josh Hawley, who was so worried about Medicaid
in Missouri,
he's fallen through.
Yeah. But we're not going to obsess on this. We will tell you some of the horrible things they're about to vote on today, apparently to approve. We want to know how you're going to cope with them. At the same time, being responsible enough to keep up to things. You know what I'm doing, as I started to say a few minutes ago, I'm increasing from 2 to 3 times a week yoga. So what? You don't think I can handle 3 times? You don't think?
I don't see you at the yoga studio, Jim. I could be wrong.
Okay, whatever. 877-301-8977.
Although that is a good coping mechanism. You do feel better after that. But
so in a moment of seriousness,
it doesn't last.
There are few people who are as depressed about the state of affairs as you and I, but we do want to enjoy the summer. So do you have a trick? Are you going to pay less attention in the news?
No,
For example, we're off the next 4 work days through July 4th. What are you going to do?
It's wonderful, but you just think since the president has been freed up to do basically whatever the hell he wants,
that's a good point.
You wonder what the hell he's going to do next, and if we can have these class action suits within 30 days, but a lot of people aren't going to be able to get the class action suits.
No one knows what you're talking about.
Well, he's been freed up to issue these executive orders, and the judges underneath him can't overrule him. So what he says,
well, it can limited, sir. It's a lot harder. That's
it's a
true.
lot harder.
It's a lot harder. Yeah.
It seems like it's going to be a Trump.
So I'm asking you what you're going to do to cope. You haven't told me. What are you going to do to cope?
It's going to be a mess.
You are.
I'm going to feel like there's a big black blanket over my head. I think it's really hard.
But you know what's really good? It's going to make you feel better.
What?
The huge demonstrations that are springing out all over the country tonight and tomorrow. That has given me great hope.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Al Sharpton.
Yeah.
When I see him on TV, I have to change the channel.
Wait, what did he say?
He said, "What is wrong? Why aren't we taking to the streets? What are we doing?"
He did good for him.
We are the Democrats. Are they just going to sit there and say, "Well, this is too bad. We're gonna screw everybody"?
Well, let's go on about that in about 30 minutes.
Disabled people. Don't you think you want to help? And they're lying so much, saying, "Oh, well, Medicaid's only going to go to people that really deserve it." Well, that's basically the circumstance right now. I mean, there's always a certain amount of fraud, but it's very, very small. They make it seem like the whole thing is fraudulent. And what is it now? 12 million people lose their health care?
Yeah.
That's good. I think that's good.
Well, it could have been 20 million. So, I mean, I'm trying to look at that's one of the ways I got through the summer.
They could have shut down all
the brighter size.
Could have taken it away from everybody.
Yeah, your grandmother, as we speak, actually is being wheeled out of the nursing home onto the sidewalk in Missouri.
Well, that's
send her a note.
You think about,
call her.
I mean, nursing homes have never been great to begin with. I mean, we ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
I guess you better start building the granny flat now.
But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try
for
the next 2 months until September, not use the phrase greatest transfer of wealth in American history.
Yeah.
Because that's what this bill is.
But you know
I'm not going to say it anymore.
All the things about, tips on not taxing tips and tips on overtime. What you realize when you look at the fine points is that the people that are going to get this are mostly making so much money, so little money, that it doesn't matter anyway. They're not paying taxes as it is. So that's another big scam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like a scamathon all the time. Anyway,
okay,
I'm doing
good.
well. I'm doing well.
Well, but the whole point of this segment was to say what you can do to mix. You haven't given one suggestion yet. Is that are you going to turn off CNN earlier tonight? What are you going to do? Okay, thank you. Okay.
I don't know.
Contributing.
I think it's unescapable. Okay, we have some texters though.
Oh, we do. Oh, great. We're going to get to your calls in 1 minute.
They're going to lift weights, drink beer, and swim in the pool. So I guess that's pretty good. Yeah, I guess
buy
that.
a pool.
Yeah, I don't have any more uplifting ones.
Okay, fine. Let's go to Bernadette in a truck. You're first on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi. Long time, et cetera.
We really appreciate it.
I am going to do the following. I'm going to support Democrats who have a plan, like what's her name out of Michigan, who just said, We can't just say no. We can't just fight. We have to have a plan. I forget her name, Wilmer or something.
I don't know.
And then,
I don't know either.
yeah.
Oh, Whitmer. You mean the governor?
Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. Yeah.
She's talking about, a better plan. And I'm going to support Elizabeth Warren because she is fighting and she always has a plan.
Okay.
And I'm going to drink a lot of bourbon.
Okay. No, good. That's good.
I'm going to support David Hogg because I'm tired of Democrats without a plan, and I'm tired of the old way of doing things because it isn't working. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, you're the perfect caller because you're doing this. You are able to. You're going to support the candidates you admire, and at the same time, you're going to drink. Which, in a moment of seriousness, that's exactly what we're looking for here. A little bit of balance. Bernadette, that was excellent. Thank you very much for the call.
Here's Lucy in Worcester. I'm more engaged than ever now. On July 4th, I'm attending a rally march in Worcester at the exact spot the Declaration of Independence was first read in Massachusetts 250 years ago. I'm an introvert. I hate crowds, but our nation is literally decaying before our eyes. I know my voice is small, but I want to be in the right side of history. And then somebody else says, I've switched my focus to something more uplifting, watching trials and following true crime. So there you go. You can wrap it up. The Karen Tree trial is over, but you can always find some other trials to follow.
So the question, which Marjorie refuses or can answer, is what are you going to do to ensure that you stay engaged enough to be responsible, but not so engaged that you can't enjoy July and August? Lorna in Rochester, welcome to the show. Hi.
Well, good morning. I'm
And you too.
third-time talker.
Thank you. Very happy to
I
have
love
you.
talking to you. Okay, first of all, I want to tell you first, I'm 82 years old.
Whoa.
I've been retired, and I've listened to a lot of news over the years.
Yeah.
And the number one thing is, which my mother was smart enough, is you only have to listen to it once a day. You don't have to be bombarded with newspapers, radio, text, all that stuff.
What do you think of
that?
that?
You get the news, you've got the news. Then you go outside, you do something outside. I
Like
ride
what?
a bike. I'm in a biking group.
Yeah.
Ride the bike. Go for a walk. Do anything, but get outside and away from any chance of being bombarded. I'm telling you, it's the only way to be sane. You know what's going on, and I donate to whoever I think is right. And if I didn't get outside, like I'm in my car now, but I would like to be on my bicycle, but it's too hot.
Yeah.
You just got to limit yourself. Limit.
I like that. I like one time a day and then
That's
outside
reasonable.
in the physical world. Lorna, that was excellent.
Reasonable. That's basically yeah. I can see that. But not everybody feels that way.
Here's Andy in Framingham. How am I going to cope? Wine, weed, and Whitmer.
Yeah, I guess that would be Gretchen Whitmer. A lot of people like her.
Yeah.
And somebody else says, Jim, after texting a couple of texts to tease you, I pop a Xanax, curl up in for a half hour or so in a ball. Don't know what I should do for the rest of the week.
Okay.
And then somebody else is saying, back on my strict standard of not drinking before noon. It's 9:30 now.
By the way, you know what? Was it Lorna who just called? Uh-huh. The idea of, it is true, almost all the news is repeated. If there's very little insight you get the second or third time around. Maybe, an additional 2 or 3%. Maybe one time do you read about or listen about how Medicaid for 12 million people is going to be cut. And that's pretty much enough, don't you think?
Don't have to be. Some people I know, they got the TV on in the background all day long.
I do.
You do?
Yeah, when I got home.
Yeah, that would drive me crazy.
I do.
I couldn't do that. I like one show.
One show.
Yes.
That's it. You put up your finger.
One.
But no one's this is not like we're at the library. You're showing me.
Yeah. I read a lot, but I watch
Cooper?
one. Yeah, because I think he has the best guess.
Yeah, well, he's supposedly going to get fired. Have you read this?
He's supposedly going to get fired. Yeah,
'cause he makes $18 million in CNN.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
I think they could have gotten by with $9 million.
Well, I mean, that's really not our topic, actually. 877-301-8970. And an anonymous somebody, a Hill staffer. The big, beautiful bill, the budget reconciliation bill, is just the beginning for budget-related bills coming up. The Appropriations Committees are working through the next year's fiscal year's budget bills. If you haven't listened to any of the markup, hold on to your socks. They're just as bad. Buckle up this summer. So what do you think of that?
Well, I think that what we know is pretty bad. I mean, and what's really sad about the climate stuff? We can't make it up, as Bill McKibben said.
That is a huge point.
We're like beyond the point of no return right now, and we keep plowing more fossil fuels into the atmosphere. And
How many of there are 53 Republicans in the Senate? How many of other than that guy, Tuberville, who I think is running for governor, who is maybe the most, I'm going to be kind, uninformed human being I've ever listened to on radio or television, how many of the other 52 Republicans think that climate change is not a problem? Really believe it? Not just they're scared to death of retaliation from Donald Trump, but really don't believe it.
I think Donald Trump knows it's a problem. I don't believe him when he says it's not true. I think it's just stick it to people. It's like stick it to the libs, stick it to the women, stick it to the people that are here from other countries. It's just stick it to people. That
woman who imitates Carolyn Levitt, one of the great TikTok things ever, goes, Joe Biden. She spits it out. And Barack Hussein Obama.
She's the one with the crosses.
Cross that's the size of her chest.
And she has them in different shapes and forms.
That's a
the other day
riot.
they were bombs. She had a cross made out of bombs.
And they usually reach down to her belly button and across her breast the whole way.
They're about
kind of deal.
12 inches by 12
And the reason
inches.
for that, if you don't watch press conference, Carolyn Levitt always has a little cross on as she's calling people idiots and
taking away people's health care.
You know what's another great thing she does that's really funny? We should have got the sound from this.
What?
She looks into the audience. There's no real audience. It's a comedian. She goes, Caitlin.
Talking to CNN host Caitlin Collins. Yeah.
Caitlin. Let's go to Linda. We're talking about how you can cope during the summer, staying engaged with stuff that really matters, at the same time having as much joy as you can have during the months of July and August. Linda, you were in East Longmeadow. Hi.
Hi, and I moved here from Harvard Square during the pandemic.
Oh, got a little bit more space.
And you're staying?
Long time, first time.
Yeah.
Are you staying?
I'll tell you. Yeah, for a while. I'm a Boston kid. My family's been there since the 1600s.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, religious tolerance. I'm descended from Puritans. They were miserable. They used to hang anybody that wasn't a Puritan on Boston Common.
Right.
So glad to be in better times. But so here's my trick. And I loved what Lorna said about her mother. You only have to listen to it once.
Yeah, it's great.
I have a friend who very wisely said to me, if you give to organizations on a monthly basis, that's how they plan their budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I give to the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. I get an email from them once or twice a day. That keeps me updated. I donate to the DNC monthly, on the little budget where they, take it out.
Yep.
And I get updated emails from them, which is really good. I donate to the state of Massachusetts. I keep getting the updates from Maura. And it's a really nice way to keep up with the news because it's not hysterical. They give you the facts. And I listen to NPR when I'm in my car.
Now, Linda, I want you to know, Marjorie and I have been on the air 26 years. I say this with great confidence. We have never spoken to a person who made a donation to the American Association of Secretaries of State.
I know.
Before you. Is that because you want elections to be run properly? Is
she
that
likes
the deal?
Bill Galvin.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Good for you. I think it's great.
Course.
I'd love it. I love it.
Of course. And I love getting the emails either from the DSS themselves or Mark Elias, who's one of the lawyers.
Yeah, he's
from
amazing.
There.
He is amazing.
And just to let folks know, they're happy to take $5 a month. You don't have to give them 10, 20, 50. You can give what you can afford.
Linda, you have you have a great prescription.
She does.
You can hear in her voice how relaxed she is.
I know.
Linda, that was great.
But the question is, shouldn't we be hysterical? I mean, that's kind of how I feel. Isn't this not a time to get a little worked up?
Well, you have two choices. You can get worked up and join the 90-year-olds in Newton Center, who are the only people demonstrating against the war and that sort of thing. Or you can say, we're doomed, which, you would think, well, actually, I'm not going to depress people more. 877-301-8970.
You would think what? That
John
we'd
and
be
Westford,
taking to the streets by the millions? That's what you would think.
I would think with great spontaneity. Would you not think?
I mean,
by the way, it isn't like, let me be clear here. Often Marjorie says, well, people don't know what's going on. And
I think that's true to a large degree.
However, there was a summary of polls on this budget reconciliation
Yeah,
thing.
very unpopular.
And it is underwater. Underwater means, for those who don't know, the percentage of people who don't like something as compared to who like something. It ranges from minus 19% in the most positive poll to minus 29%. So people do know how horrible it is, yet they're still doing nothing. And with all due respect to you guys out there, I know you're going to call and say, I'm going to a demonstration in West whatever next Tuesday. I'm going to another protest with 11 people. But, this is the kind of thing where in most Western democracies, half the country would be out of their houses and onto the streets.
Well, John from Westford sends a great solution. He says, how to cope? I'm just watching conservative media, and everything is good.
Well, I mean, John, by the way, is a wonderful listener.
But he's right.
He's a very conservative
but that's
guy.
True.
And he calls us all the time, and he's a very reasoned soul who just has a different worldview.
Almost never talks about slashing the hell out of Medicaid.
No, he means he's okay with it. Also, he means.
Oh, I think
John's a conservative-leaning guy. He calls us all the time.
I don't think John wants to take away health care from disabled people. Do you, John?
Well, maybe he
don't
subscribes
think so.
to the notion that this is just getting the riffraff. That people are cheating.
Well, if you're very disabled, it's hard to be out there working 90 hours a week.
Well, he may
think.
What I mean?
John,
what's his face? CNN just played a clip from Donald Trump on Fox News saying nobody's being cut off Medicaid.
I know. That's what I mean.
Well, maybe if you believe that, you'll feel better.
Well, they're all lying. And I think, I don't know, John, you seem like a gentleman when you call. I don't think you want to hurt little old ladies in nursing homes and people that are disabled. And that's what's going to happen. But, cleverly, it's not going to happen for a while. So people won't feel this until 2027,
until after the midterms.
2028, just in time, to blame Democrats for everything.
Did you see the Trump interview screwed up? He said by mistake, because he got it backwards, he said we totally obliterated everybody on Medicaid, but we had no impact. We left Iran's nuclear capacity intact. And then he realized he got it backwards, so he had to correct it.
That's a good one. Well, they have just
when you watch him, I watched half that interview.
Yep.
When you watch him, I know we've said this before, the fact that press was at the end there, and I understand it, and they were right, 24/7 all over Joe Biden and his cognitive ability.
Yeah.
This guy cannot get a coherent sentence
But you know
out.
what's incredible? We're going to talk about this. Well, I'll have to wait till after the break to talk about it. But the whole kind of juxtaposition of the zillionaire wedding over in Venice with Bezos and people like just floating.
What was the line you read me from some article? Greatest collection of tax-avoiding people in world history.
Like convention of tax cheats over there is what they were essentially saying. Okay, we're talking about this big, beautiful bill, so-called what it's going to mean to people. We're going to be right back. 877-301-8970. This is BPR on NEPM.
GBH Daily is a newsletter that keeps you informed, connected, and ready to go every weekday morning. You can subscribe today and get it in your inbox at gbh.org/daily.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. RWJF is a national philanthropy working toward a future where health is no longer a privilege but a right. Learn more at rwjf.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Discovery Museum in Acton, hosting its inaugural Nature Play Festival on Friday, July 11th, offering immersive nature-based activities outdoors and inside from 11 to 7, open to all. Learn more at discoveryacton.org. And M&M Skylights, installing and servicing the full range of commercial and residential V-Lock skylight products. More information about their installation process and consultations can be scheduled at mmskylights.com.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. On tape tomorrow through the 4th. We're back live on July 7th. And speaking of it, this is sort of the beginning of summer in our estimation. We want to know how you are planning on balancing the need to stay, we believe the need to stay somewhat engaged with the need to have fun during the summer as best you can. You can tell us what your formula is. Are you unplugging completely, partially, not at all, whatever. 877-301-8970 is the number. Hyman is the text. My name is Isaac. I'm 21. I'll probably keep DoorDash in a coat because it's impossible, capital letters, to find a summer job. I just want to work. Man. 877-301-8970. Speaking of July 4th, you know what you're going to see a lot less of in the sky on July 4th? Fireworks. You know where 99% of the fireworks come from? China.
Really?
Yeah. And so
well,
the tariff
what?
has had a huge impact on those businesses.
Because the fireworks get out of control. You hear them constantly.
God.
They do.
Okay.
Someone said that I will read the Frederick Douglass speech, "What to the slave is the 4th of July." That's a pretty grim one. But
as Trump said, though, he's doing a great job. Frederick Douglass is doing a great job.
Here's someone who says they're sending their summer political energy by helping the Hispanic people in my life who are here legally to better understand Trump's administration's political policies and share incredible news sources in the Spanish language. This person says, where's the Spanish station? Where's the Spanish guide to Project 2025? I don't think the Project 2025 people are going to translate that into Spanish. I think somebody else would have to do that. I don't.
But that's actually that. I assume that's a really serious thing. That's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing
to be doing.
A wonderful thing. A friend of mine who works in women's health care at a place that does not do abortions, but it does women's health care. They have a card they hand out to tell everybody what to do about immigration coming to their door.
We're going to play because Marjorie and I love this woman so much. Her name is Lysandra Vasquez. She's the one who every single day that Caroline Leavitt does a press conference, she does her 2-minute version of the press conference with a huge cross on, like literally the size of her whole chest. Right?
Soldiers, not COVID masks,
right.
Bombs every day.
If Caroline Leavitt takes to the podium, she takes to the podium. Yep. So the only, I'm not sure it's going to translate to sound without seeing the cross, which makes me laugh the whole time. We're going to give it a go. Here she is on TikTok. Lysandra Vasquez doing her version, which is brilliant, of Caroline Leavitt.
This is the world that Democrats want. They want hard-earned people, like the people inside of the theater in London, to pay for the experiences of those on the outside who are just trying to mooch. And that's exactly what President Donald J. Trump is trying to prevent, okay? Unlike Joe Biden and Barack Hussein Obama, who just let 21 million criminals come into this country like Obrego export sodas, and that will not be happening on our watch. Sure.
Sure, she says sure to every. When she takes when there's a question from a reporter, she goes sure. She makes a little. You should check her out. It'll provide some amusement.
Before we get to the calls, here's one more. Amy in the car. This weekend, I went camping in Maine. No internet for 48 hours. The longest I've gone without checking the news since 1:20 by about 45 hours. Talk about a cleanse. I guess for me, I needed it taken away. My advice is go off the grid.
Here's an anonymous texter, and I mean this respectfully. This is not making it with me. With due respect, because I'm doing this too, but your topic is, quote, how can I consume the news but also enjoy my summer? But you're also wondering why people aren't taking to the streets. People are overwhelmed and feel disempowered. Many, many people are just trying to find small amounts of joy to get through their day. That's why people aren't taking to the streets. We're all on survival mode, hoping we can make it through the next 3.5 years. Well, people in every Western democracy have had their variation of this nightmare. Maybe not Donald Trump, and they're tired and they're overwhelmed, and they take to the streets when they believe their interests are being sacrificed by their leaders. And we are the most passive, in my opinion, population in a democracy on the planet, and always have been. They're great days. Remember the thing I said around the No Kings thing? What are the follow-ups going to be? And there have been lots of good individual follow-ups. But like we had the great Bill McKibben with us on Friday. Sunday is in, which is great, is in September. You know, it's just, I don't know. Let's go to Jim in a car. Welcome to BPR. Hi.
Hello there.
Hello there to you.
Well, first I must say, I'm somebody who's disabled, and my income is directly related to this. My medicine that keeps me alive is directly related to this.
Hey.
I waited 15 years to get on a housing voucher, I've had that only for 3 years. I've had to shut this off, meaning news in general. Every couple of days, I'll go back to it. But lately, I'm getting quite scared, and it's affecting me. I received a email from my administrator, my social administrator, the area people that administrate all this, and they gave me a very scary information about how they may not be there in a year from now.
Oh, my God.
Which means my housing may not be there for a year from now. And because this all kicks in the next budget next year, my medicine may not be there all year. Well, soon after, it won't take too long with the affliction I have. I may not be here very long after this goes down. And I don't scare very easy. I'm over 60. I'm obviously a guy. And I can't help but want to know what's going on. So I go back and forth. It's affecting me. I'm not sleeping. I'm having terrible dreams. I'm getting very depressed. This is affecting me very badly. And no, it's affecting me. I'm falling apart at this point.
Hey,
and
Jim,
it's not a good season for my illness on top of that.
Jim, can I ask you a favor?
Yes.
I have a feeling one of our colleagues, with your permission, actually might like to talk to you at some greater length. Do you mind holding on and leaving your contact information, and someone might reach out to you?
That's fine.
Okay.
I can't believe we're living in a country like this right now.
Nor can
and where
I.
is everybody? Where is everybody?
I'm with you. Jim, stay as well as you can,
Jim,
and please stay in touch with us.
I'm so sorry you're going through this, and
Don't hang up.
Stay on the line, leave your number. I mean,
That's the perfect wrap for this discussion.
And he's one of millions of people.
But as Trump said on Fox
to,
News, I'm not taking Medicaid away from anybody.
And this is to give more tax breaks to people that went to Jeff Bezos' wedding over the weekend.
Exactly right.
Okay, coming up after this quick break, political analyst Anand Girdadas joins us for a Monday political discussion. We're going to talk to him about some of the stuff we talked about before, in addition to conditions in immigration centers and what the rise of a democratic socialist, like the guy that wants to be mayor of New York City, actually means. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Sumo wrestling has long been about very large men. Now women are fighting for a spot in the ring.
I'm exuding some kind of aura that I'm going to fight. And afterwards, my opponent will say that you looked bigger in the ring.
That story and more from Japan next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And GM Roth Design Remodeling. Dreams delivered. With custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're on tape for the rest of the week after today. Not sure why we're even here today. It's my fault. Marjorie's made that clear.
Yes, it is.
We return live on Monday, July 7th. On July 8th, we'll be at the library. We just found out Mayor Wu will join us for an hour on Tuesday, July 8th. And on Wednesday, the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell, will join us for an hour at the library to take our questions and yours. Joined now on Zoom by Anand Girdadas. He's political journalist, author of The Persuaders and Winners Take All. You can find his newsletter at The Ink, at the.ink, and see him on MSNBC. And for all BPR listeners, Anand's generous act yet again is he sets up a deal where you can get a 30-day free trial of this fabulous newsletter by going to the.ink/BPR. Anand, good to see you again as always. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you both.
Anand, I wanted to start. Our staff said you happened to hear the gentleman that just called us before, who talked about being on disability, over 60 years old, has housing helped through the government and medical care through the government, and he sounded scared to death. And he's one of millions. And here we are, kind of just cruising into 4th of July. I guess not a big deal.
I mean, just that I'm glad I logged on a few minutes early so I could hear that, because I'm not glad is maybe not the right word, but just listening to the voice of that man, right? I don't know anything about him. He just sounded like an American to me. He just sounded like a regular person who didn't seem entitled, didn't just seem to have some giant expectations of being able to live in a yacht or be a billionaire or buy a senator. He seemed like a guy whose expectation was that in one of the wealthiest societies in the history of the world, that active war should not be made on his body and mind by the most powerful people. Listen to what he said. He was talking about it's affecting his dreams. This is a man, an elderly man, invading his dreams. These rich and powerful people, the Trump regime, these Republicans in the House and Senate enacting this bill. It is a bill of cruelty, and regular American people like the man who called in are having their dreams haunted. He's calling into a radio show saying he may not live if their visions pass, right? And there are millions of people like him. There are millions of uncles and aunts and friends and family and even exes who will suffer, will feel pain, will not be able to sleep if this kind of bill that is right now being debated in Congress passes. It is a budget of extraordinary cruelty, almost designed to make harder the lives of all Americans, including many, many Americans who voted for Donald Trump.
You know, Anand, we described before Jim called in some of the cruelty. There's not enough time to go through all of it. I think it took 16 hours to read on the Senate floor. And we also described some polling that was on CNN this morning that showed that the best poll, the most positive poll from the Washington Post, had people disliking this bill by 19% greater than the number of people who liked it. The Kaiser poll was 29% underwater. Independents, 45% underwater. Marjorie often says to me when I say, why don't people do something about X or Y? Well, they watch Fox News, they're in that bubble, they don't know anything. Obviously, based on this poll, people know plenty, and we're still not doing anything. So the thing that we said, and was echoed by Jim, why aren't we spontaneously doing what people in many Western democracies do in response to slights far less grievous than this?
I don't entirely know the answer. You know, I think it is one of the puzzles of this era. This is certainly a get out in the streets type of era, and we have seen, some of these protests, but it's not the every Saturday protest that we saw in Hong Kong. It's not the size and scale we've seen in Germany in recent years over the far-right party there, the AfD. I don't know if it's social media giving people a sense of participation that is not real, sort of gamifying engagement. I don't know if it's the fact that, this is a highly mature, sophisticated, high-functioning society that even when it is being completely misrun, like things work, so the illusion of there's no empty grocery stores. So people feel like, I guess, things are normal. There's a kind of anesthetic effect. It's very strange to live in a time like this when what you read, you hear the story of that gentleman, you read what's happening in the papers, you hear about abductions and kidnapping, and gets normal that a senator or a mayoral candidate is being abducted by, masked men. But also there is normal life. I think I saw a piece in the New York Times, like the danger of the kind of beautiful normalcy of a time like this. And so that's why it's very important on shows like yours to highlight for people, yes, your garden is beautiful and you should enjoy that. It's even more important to enjoy it right now. And your granddaughter smells so sweet when you give her a hug. And yes, like that's never been more important. And that is all taking place in the context of a war on basic goodness and decency in this country. And I'm not making that as a partisan statement or an ideological statement. I think at a very baseline, we should not do things that will make a lot of other people's lives harder. That's just like I feel like everybody listening to this, including Republicans and Trump supporters who might listen to your show, I feel like we shouldn't do things that make large numbers of people's lives harder. Can we start from there?
Well, to benefit small numbers of people who don't need the benefit, I think is...
We read this last week about the world's richest 1%. And this is the world, not just the United States. The wealth has increased by 33.9 trillion since 2015. And it'd be enough to end poverty all over the world. That's the whole world, not just the United States. But as we saw with Jeff Bezos' wedding over the weekend in Venice, I mean, people are approaching the trillionaire place, never mind billionaires in this country. And they're in many ways admired. They're not vilified for their greed. It's kind of like we've lost our way in some way.
Yeah, and we see all these Hollywood... First of all, I think it's so hilarious that it's a relatively small wedding, and they just clearly like the invitation list was clearly like, someone give me a copy of People magazine. Let's okay. So you get an assistant to buy you a copy. Go to the dentist, get a People magazine, write down all the names in bold, and then find their address and invite them to your wedding. Like, don't you have friends?
That's a great point. Yeah, I guess he's
your wedding guest is Sydney Sweeney, who became really famous a few years ago. Like it's just so weird. Like, don't you have friends? Didn't you go to high school with anybody? Didn't you go to college with anybody? Maybe you have some people you worked with. I don't know.
Yeah, Oprah,
neighbors
Tom Brady,
in your rich neighborhood. Yeah.
Oh my
so
God.
Weird. Could you imagine? I mean, imagine if I was just getting married right now and I was just like, I'm gonna invite. I'm just gonna invite Kim Jong Un and Emmanuel Macron. Just my friend, just some friends. Yeah, I'm gonna have Keir Starmer. I'm gonna get him there. I like politics. I'm just gonna invite famous names that I can remember.
Yeah, and they all went, as far as we know. I mean, it was a pretty impressive show of force there, getting off those little boats. Or big boats, I should say.
Anand Girdadas from The Ink, and as always, he's very kind to be offering listeners a special 30-day free trial of The Ink. You go to the.ink/BPR. On the other side of the hopelessness spectrum, at least according to you, you wrote a piece on The Ink, what Zoran, as in Mamdani, can teach Democrats. What could he teach? And obviously, everybody knows he's the winner of the preliminary Democratic thing there in New York City. What could he teach Democrats, Anand?
It was a rare moment when he won, and I got to be at the victory party in this room. It was a rooftop room, so open room, late at night. It was just this room full of people, obviously people committed to the campaign or friends of the campaign, who were, I think, had felt a kind of relief that they hadn't felt since last November. And I think a lot of people processing the victory the next day also were feeling those things. And I think the biggest lesson of Zoran's campaign is a kind of fearless and unapologetic response to Trump and his billionaire cronies' assault on America, instead of a tepid, half courageous, sort of performative, just pointing at him instead of actually offering anything different. So a couple things that Zoran did very strikingly. He utilized a strategy, a political strategy, that I actually wrote about in my last book, The Persuaders, that's called, it's persuasion, not by dilution, not by catering to the center, by watering things down to not make people too afraid of you, which is what Democrats usually do, right? It's persuasion by animating your base in order to persuade the middle. In other words, get some core group of people, even if they're small, so damn excited that they cannot shut up about you and your ideas. Okay, that's step one. That is really different from watering down your ideas to cater to some fantasy Ohio diner American who might not be think you're a communist. So propose free, and also simple meme-like ideas, free buses. My 10-year-old son is walking around being like, when are the buses going to be free? Are they free yet? When is it? He can just understand it, right? You know how kids can intuitively play with an iPhone? It's that's a sign that it's a good design. Mm-hmm. If kids understand a policy idea, it's the same thing. It's a sign that it's an elegant design. Free buses is an elegant design. So he proposed big, bold things that were not designed to appeal to everybody. They were actually designed to appeal to a core group of people who could not shut up about them, who could not wait until. And then you know what those people do? They blab. They blab and they blab and they blab. And when you blab, what you're doing is free advertising, right? Which is what we used to do before the 30-second TV spot was invented. People just used to talk. And if you give people something that they're so excited about, they can't believe is happening, they want to get into the weeds about, they want to sit in a bar late at night and analyze things about, well, you know what? You start having this ripple effect of all these other people in the middle who are not so committed, maybe less ideological. They don't care about Zoran, but they care that their friend is so excited about something. They care that their son is so excited about something, their daughter is so excited about something. And that's how he got from 1% to 10% to 40% plus. The other thing he did was fearlessly take on oligarchy and billionaires in a way the Democrats are too often afraid to do. Bernie Sanders, I think, in the last couple of days has been talking about, if Kamala Harris had actually taken on the billionaires instead of taking money from them, we might be calling her the president today. I think that's true. And he was also, and I'll say this as a brown man, decade older than him, lives in New York. He was also fearless about and unapologetic about his identity in a way that is rare. He didn't. I mean, I remember growing up, my parents would occasionally want me to wear Indian clothes to a party at their friend's house, and I never wanted to. I never wanted to be different, And he was doing videos wearing kurtas. He's eating biryani in Queens, but he's also this. He's also that. He was just unapologetic. He knew they were going to throw this Islamophobic stuff at them, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll have another biryani with that." Just I think that, and people rewarded it, and so I think there's. To sum it up, really fearlessly take on the power structure, really focus on giving your core supporters something to blab about, and then just be who you are. And when you think of those three things, almost no Democrat of any stature is scoring on all three of those things, but I think they could.
I don't think it hurt. You mentioned this too, and we've been talking a lot about it. Having it near the end, having one high-profile sexual harasser endorsing another high-profile sexual harasser didn't hurt Mamdani either. I don't think.
But I also think that I mean, we've said this a million times that people are too old in Congress. I mean, I'm a baby boomer. I didn't have to expect to buy a house that was $500,000 or in Boston $1 million, and you can't. I mean, people can't afford anything. Young people can't afford anything. I think it's dawning on whole great swaths of them that this trickle-down stuff is baloney and that they're getting screwed. I mean, you hear that all the time from people in their 20s and 30s. I will never be able to buy a house. And these are people with good jobs. Certainly in New York City, it's the same thing in Boston. They're making decent money and, six figures, and they can't afford anything.
Anand, I want to read you something, though. Did you see the Washington Post editorial
they trashed him.
Mamdani? Did you see this?
No. Did it fall under the two rubrics that Jeff Bezos has allowed for editorial? Free markets and personal liberty or whatever?
It may.
It was sort of a Fiorello LaGuardia
I'll read you
thing,
one line.
We have in your stuff.
It says, in fact, New Yorkers should be worried that he, Mamdani, would lead Gotham back to the bad old days of civic dysfunction. Democrats should fear that he'll discredit their next generation of party leaders, almost all of whom are better, or this is incredible, almost all of whom are better than this democratic socialist. And then they give examples of why they think that. They end saying the models, this is a paraphrase, should not be Mamdani for the Democratic Party. They should be people like the gubernatorial candidates in Virginia, Spanberger, and in New Jersey, Sherrill. So do you want to respond to them?
Jim, I do. I do.
Oh, good.
First of all, I mean, this is Jeff Bezos, basically, has taken control of this paper, and this is opinion page. My suggestion is that he maybe consider staying in Venice in the canals with the personal flotation device that he married. She'd be great in a shipwreck, by the way, in Venice.
She would have survived the Titanic, too, you know?
You don't have to worry about falling into those canals. You get a little tipsy at a wedding, like, you don't have to worry about falling into the canals if you got her.
Got it.
So, to make a more substantive point, Jeff Bezos...
That was pretty substantive, I thought.
That was very good.
Go ahead.
I got to remember that one.
He is trying to run interference for himself and his class of billionaires. And what's so striking is, as you said, they're trying to use this fear of this is socialism and this is that. Like, here's what happened. A bunch of young people, just as you said, Marjorie, have come of age realizing that the stories they've told about how this country is supposed to work don't work.
Yeah.
They can't start. They want kids, but they can't have them because they feel it would be unethical to bring kids into a world where they can't provide for them, right? They want a home, but they can't live in one. They want a job that would allow them some amount of measure of, comfort and safety and not having to hustle for a new gig every 24 hours. And their elders, their parents and grandparents' generation have left them an economy in tatters. It doesn't work for 80 to 90% of people. And so they're rising up and saying a very radical concept, which is maybe life doesn't have to be this hard. Maybe life doesn't have to be a perpetual stress pit. Maybe we can have nice things. Maybe we can, I don't know, on a Saturday, take in a movie because we don't have to work. Maybe our children, we could have children, we can get married without feeling like those things are irresponsible. I mean, thousands of years ago, cave people had children and paired up and had children without fear.
That's right.
What are we doing in the richest country in the world where, what is the point of any of our progress if you got 28-year-olds who are you know what? I feel like it would be irresponsible for me to pair off with someone and have a child. What are we doing? What are we doing? Time out. Cut. What are we doing? So I think Zoran, and you're going to see this elsewhere, is rising and is going to do much better than any of these editorial boards predict, because he's channeling a very basic idea that is highly relatable, which is we can have nice things. It doesn't have to be this way. And being a stress ball as you navigate economic and social life is not the inevitable landing point of America in the 21st century.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think he hit the nail on the head. And I think that it's been incredible to watch all the time when the GOP is calling these ideas radical, while they're sending people that are undocumented off to countries that they didn't come from and saying that's, Is
your kid who lives in New York saying the kinds of things that, I know he's a big supporter of what Anand's saying?
Two left in New York City. They're ecstatic. They're ecstatic because
for the reasons that you and Anand are talking about.
I think anybody that's looking at that. As I said, even if you're doing well and you're young, you can't afford anything, especially in New York, or especially in Boston. But even in, I'm sure prices aren't great. I don't know enough about prices in Omaha, Nebraska, but they're probably pretty high too.
Hey, Anand, we got to go, but can I ask you something? We're doing a special segment next week on personal inflation devices. Can you join us just for 5 minutes at the top of the
a lot of people don't know I got my doctorate in that.
It must have been fun.
We'll be in touch.
It's
great to see you as always. Really love talking to you. Thanks, Anand.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Big pleasure.
Happy 4th of July, such as it is.
Yes, and to you also.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Anand Girdadas. He is a political journalist, author of The Persuaders and Winners Take All. You can find his newsletter, The Ink, at the.ink. And if you go to the the.ink BPR, you can access a special 30-day free trial. What did I say?
/BPR. It's fine.
Yeah, the.ink/BPR. Right, and it's really worth getting that 30-day trial, too. Okay, the show continues here in Boston. For you listening on NEPM, thanks for tuning in. We're done, though, from the far end of the state, but the fabulous 413 start at 3 o'clock this afternoon. You're listening to Boston Public Radio. Juliet Shore, the 4-day week, is up right after the news. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Rockland Trust Bank, helping foster healthy relationships with money by providing education and resources to the community, one neighborhood at a time. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. After coming out as a trans woman, world record-holding gamer Narcissa Wright live streams her attempts to break a new record in Zelda while facing constant online harassment. Watch Break the Game tonight at 10 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, head on Hour 2 of BPR. Boston College economist Juliet Shore is out with a new book and making the case for a 4-day work week in America. Great in theory, very possible in practice, but less impressive when you consider the one-day work week Marjorie and I managed to get away with this week.
That's right. I'm Marjorie Egan, then it's Boston resident Carmen Sandiego travel writer Christopher Muther on how to avoid fainting when you're chopping up octopus in Portugal. Sorry, Son Montgomery. Then we'll speak with Cecilia Lizotte. She's the joint owner of the beloved Roxbury restaurant, Suya Joint. Her business partner and brother, Paul, is in ICE detention. It's all next on the second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Senate is holding a marathon voting session this hour on President Trump's sweeping domestic legislation. NPR's Deirdre Walsh says it's really a tax bill.
It makes the tax cuts enacted in 2017 in President Trump's first term permanent. It adds some temporary tax breaks like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. It also boosts spending for border enforcement, for the military, increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion to avoid a default later this summer. But to offset all of those tax breaks, the legislation includes significant spending cuts.
NPR's Deirdre Walsh on spending cuts, the bulk of which, almost $1 trillion worth, come from changes to Medicaid. Congress's nonpartisan scorekeeper said yesterday this version of the bill adds $3.3 trillion to the deficit over the next decade, and nearly 12 million low-income Americans could lose their Medicaid coverage. President Trump has called on Israel and Hamas to make a deal to release hostages from Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel's war with Iran has led to new opportunities to free hostages. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from Tel Aviv. Israel is also seeking a diplomatic deal with Syria.
Prime Minister Netanyahu's close advisor Ron Dermer is expected to meet U.S. officials in Washington to advance a potential deal for ties between Israel and Syria. That's according to a person briefed on the matter, not authorized to speak publicly. The prime minister's own corruption trial was postponed this week after Israeli intelligence chiefs convinced the judges that Netanyahu was busy with important diplomatic and security issues. Israeli media reported it was related to Syria. Also, Israel's military chief of staff met with top government officials Sunday to discuss the future of the Gaza war. The person briefed on the matter said Israel's military estimates troops need 2 more weeks to complete their objectives in Gaza. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Jury deliberations are underway in New York in Sean Diddy Combs' trial. NPR's Isabella Gomez Sarmiento reports the hip-hop mogul has pleaded not guilty to charges of sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy.
For nearly 7 weeks, federal prosecutors laid out testimony and evidence to try to prove Combs is guilty of the crimes he's charged with. They accuse him of running a criminal enterprise that facilitated and concealed sex crimes for over a decade. Combs' defense lawyers deny these accusations. They say Combs was involved in consensual relationships that were totally separate from his many companies. If convicted on all counts, Combs could spend the remainder of his life in prison. Isabella Gomez Sarmiento, NPR News.
U.S. stocks trading higher this hour with the Dow Jones Industrial Average up nearly 160 points. From Washington, this is NPR News.
And from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston, I'm Judy Ewell. The Trump administration is threatening to pull all remaining federal funding from Harvard, saying the university failed to protect Jewish students during Gaza-related protests. The school has already lost billions amid its ongoing fight with the administration. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk Carapezza reports.
In a letter to Harvard President Alan Garber, the U.S. Education Department's Anti-Semitism Task Force calls the school a breeding ground for race discrimination. The department says its Civil Rights Office has wrapped up an investigation and found Harvard was, at best, deliberately indifferent to claims of anti-Semitic harassment on campus. Unless the university makes immediate changes, the letter warns it could lose access to federal dollars. In a statement, a university spokesperson says Harvard is far from indifferent on the issue and strongly disagrees with the government's findings. Kirk Carapezza, GBH News.
This week brings several ideal beach days, but that doesn't mean you can swim everywhere. 19 beaches are listed as closed on the State Department of Public Health's beach water quality dashboard. The majority of them are off limits to swimmers because of high levels of bacteria in the water. This mom says she's not letting her kids wade into area lakes and ponds anytime soon.
I kind of stopped going to the beach as of last year, and I kind of started utilizing the pool a little more. I just don't like how unsanitary it is to be down there now.
It is hot today. Sunny, highs in the 80s this afternoon. There's a chance of showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. Highs again in the 80s. Right now, it's 77 in Boston.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going on a break after today. We've got the rest of the week off, but we're playing best of segments all week long. We'll be back Monday, July 7th. The Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, will be with us 11 to 12. And on
the 9th.
On the 9th of July at the Boston Public Library. And the mayor, Michelle Wu, is coming which day?
8th, Tuesday.
The 8th.
Hour at the library.
Wow. Big show. Big show. Okay. Hello again, Jim.
Hi there, Marjorie. Advocates of a 4-day work week cite improvements in work-life balance and productivity, reduction in stress, a whole bunch of positive things. Polling shows workers want it. More employers in America are offering it. At least one prominent politician says it's within reach thanks to technological advancements. Here's Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders on Joe Rogan's podcast last week.
You are a worker. Your productivity is increasing because we give you AI. Instead of throwing you out on the street, I'm going to reduce your work week to 32 hours. All right?
So you're going to nice. 4-day work week?
Exactly. Let's use technology to benefit workers. That means give you more time with your family, with your friends, for education, whatever the hell you want to do. You don't have to work 40 hours a week anymore.
And by the way, our next guest testified in front of Senator Sanders' committee in 2024. Joining us is someone I recognize as almost as great an advocate for the 4-day work week as I am. She is Boston College economist. You're close second, Juliet, I want you to know. And sociologist Juliet Shore. Her fabulous new book is called 4 Days a Week. I'm going to hold it up in a second. The life-changing solution for reducing employee stress, improving well-being, and working smarter. Can anybody see this book there? Well,
yeah, there it is.
There it is. Can you come in on me a little bit? In the interim, hi, Juliet Shore. Congratulations. The
Yeah.
book is great. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Jim is still trying to coast off the piece he wrote about 19 years ago for the
I
Boston
did, the
Globe.
Globe,
I would say you got to beat Juliet Shore, coming and going. But you know what I didn't realize? You mentioned in your book that before 1900, a long time ago, Americans worked fewer hours than like the French and the Germans and a lot of other people. Those were the days, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I mean, early part of the 20th century, we had lower hours. We led the world in work time reduction. We were the first to the 5-day week. And coming out of the Second World War, still lower than many countries. Things started to go in the opposite direction in the 1970s, where other wealthy countries kept on that path of work time reduction, and the U.S. sort of stalled out, and then eventually our working hours started to increase.
So what was it about the 70s that made that happen?
Well, there are a couple of things. I mean, number one, you had the weakening of unions, which made it harder to get gains. You had growing healthcare costs, and those are paid per person, so employer resistance to work time. And then also more and more married women with children in the labor force working longer hours.
Yeah, I noted that one, that 2 days is not enough for if you get all your stuff done on the weekends, and women are putting in all those extra hours of unpaid work.
Yeah.
I think I got this right. One of the people we've raved about in the corporate world, not in recent years, was Aaron Feuerstein, who ran Malden Mills, who after his place burnt down, as I assume most listeners of a certain age will remember, paid everybody through some finite period of time, even though he was making no money. The first place to have a 5-day work week was Malden Mills with his father or some relative? Or it was a Feuerstein.
Yes. It was the original company. The family still lives in Brookline. In fact, one of the granddaughters works at Boston College.
Oh, that's great.
And they were the very first company to go to a 5-day week. And they've had that, really leading edge humanitarian attitude ever since.
It's just wonderful. And I remember him, I think it was during Bill Clinton, was at the State of the Union and recognized it was a beautiful thing. Okay, get to your research, which is wildly exciting to me. What'd you do? How many companies did you look at? Where were they? All that sort of stuff.
Okay, so it was a really unusual opportunity, and we started out February 2022 with the first group of companies, most of them in Ireland, a few global, and the U.S., and these are companies who are giving a 32-hour work week, so 4 8-hour days, not a compressed work week. Really important, because a lot of people think, it must be compressed. No reduction in pay whatsoever, but they're trying to figure out, before they start the new schedule, how to maintain their productivity. So that was our first, what we call pilot or trial. They were sort of 6-month experiments. We collected data at baseline, meaning before they started, 3 months in, 6 months in. Then we kept collecting 12 months, 24 months. We followed that up with a primarily North American trial 2 months later. 2 months later, the biggest UK trial. 2 months later, Australasia, South Africa, Brazil, Portugal, more American trials. Where else have we got?
Well, ultimately, 245 companies, right?
Well, by now we have 373.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
The research is ongoing, and more than 10,000 employees have been part of this. So yes, and expanding. There are new trials going on in Scandinavia, one being planned for Italy. We have government-sponsored trials.
So what did you find so far?
really fantastic results. So as you mentioned, the well-being results are kind of off the charts. We have 20 different metrics that we're collecting, probably overkill. Stress, anxiety, fatigue, sleep, exercise, negative feelings, positive, all these satisfaction variables, burnout, and then work-family and work-life conflicts. Significant improvements on all of them. Probably the most striking statistic, 70% of people are scoring lower on the burnout scale. At 6 months than actually even at 3 months than they were at baseline.
Which is obviously really good for the employer, not just the employee, but the employer as well.
And just to make sure people heard this, you're not talking about the 10-hour, 4-day.
No, she said not compressed week.
But I want to make sure, because I think when I thought of 4-day work week, that's what I thought of, 4 10-hour days. You're talking about 4 hours. 4 days, 32 hours.
Yes,
yeah,
4 8-hour days.
And why is that so important versus the 4 days, 10 hours?
So a lot of employees will prefer a 4-10s.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you don't get the same well-being impact. So what they're finding, there's not a lot of research on it, but people are more stressed. Those 10-hour days are long. I have people writing into me irate, they hear me on the radio or something and saying, 4-10s is the worst schedule ever. I was on it and I hated it. And I'm like, no, these are 4-8s because it doesn't work for everybody. Yeah. It's a long time, 10 hours, too long. And what 4-8s gives people is what they need, which is enough time away from work to do what they need to get done and to recover from work. It's really important. Our people talk about how Sundays are so different.
Yeah.
They don't get the Sunday scaries. They don't feel, in the middle of the week, they don't feel like they can't make it through. They don't have that hump day on Wednesday. It's just, what do they say? Life-changing.
Well,
Best thing that ever happened.
Sure. Even when we remark on this all the time, even when you have a single 3-day weekend, even if it's because there's a holiday on Monday, callers, the two of us, our coworkers, the feeling is totally different, even though it's a one and done. So as important as what the employees think, which obviously to me matters most, the employers were really happy and close to 90% sticking with the 4-day thing, right?
More than 90, yes.
What do they say to
after a year? So they love it. There are a couple, most of them are saying they're either maintaining or improving productivity. And we also see that in the data from the employees. There's a huge bump up in the self-report. We have a number of metrics of productivity, self-reported productivity, something called workability. We have a work smart scale, which measures kind of how intelligently and efficiently people are working. That goes up. So
why does it go up?
A couple things. One is they're just rested, they're recovered, they're in better shape to work. They get more intentional about their work. So they prioritize what's important, less time wasting. But the really important thing here is that this is a whole organizational change, organization-wide change. So it's not mostly what individuals are doing. It's how the teams come together and they figure out, what are we wasting time on? How can we change our meeting culture? How can we reduce distractions? How can we, in the manufacturing companies, go through the steps that we're following and save time? So that's really key. And so that's number one. Product quality goes up in some of these places, they're telling us. And then the other huge thing, especially at a time like this, is retention, because a number of these companies started this because they were losing people like in droves. Nobody quits a 4-day week job.
That's the voice, let me just say, of Juliet Shore. Her latest book, 4 Days a Week, The Life-Changing Solution for Reducing Employee Stress, Improving Well-Being, and Working Smarter. Sorry, Margaret.
Several people are texting because they said they can't make enough money on 40 hours a week. How are they going to make enough money on 32 hours a week? So explain that part.
Yes, no reduction in pay.
Yeah.
That you're getting exactly the same pay. This is not trading time for money. This is part of why the employees love it so much. We've got 95% who prefer it. So no reduction in pay, just an extra day off. And some of these really big real burnout jobs. Like we have nurses studies here. We have a restaurant. These folks, they're not asked to do as much in 4 days as they did in 5. They're just getting a break because they are so burned out. But patient outcomes are going up. People stop quitting. I mean, it's really, something economists say is impossible. Both sides are winning.
I want to tell you a funny story, speaking about companies you talk to that do 4-day work weeks. When the Globe ran a story a couple of months ago, Francis Ford Coppola showing up at the Coolidge to give a talk about when Megalopolis came out. And we're reading the story. I'm saying, who's asking him the questions? Juliet Shore is asking him the questions. So the next day, she's an economist. Yeah. The next day, we have the culture leader here and arts leader who was there that night, by the way, Jared Bowen. And we said to Jared, why was Juliet Shore doing this interview? And then I read in your book, Inglenook, is that what it's called? His vineyard has a 4-day work week.
Yes. First winery in the world, he says.
Is that so?
Yes. But that's not why I was there.
Oh, I assumed it was. Why was it?
Well, Megalopolis is a very utopian movie. It's about how the world could be different. Yeah. And he read my work. I've spent a lot of time writing about how society could be different, and he really resonated with it. The day he rapped on Megalopolis, he called me up. And
oh, my gosh.
He said, he emailed first. At first I thought it was maybe a scam or something. And he said, I'm a movie director. Would you... could we schedule a call?
That is a fabulous story.
He's an amazing person, by the way. Really great guy.
Yeah. You also talk about this casual restaurant chain. Is it Tucci's or something?
Tucci's, yeah.
What did Tucci's do?
So Tucci's, their plan was for everybody, but they started with their restaurant managers and chefs who have very long hours. They worked about 55 hours a week.
Yeah.
And they just said, day off. They all got a day off. Now, they had to make some adjustments. So they hired some hourly managers that cost a little bit of money. They upskilled some of their lower level food preparation people to do some of the work that the chefs would do in terms of food preparation and so forth. So they figured out how to change their division of labor to make it possible for the chefs and the general managers to be off on that extra day. And it worked. Their product quality went up. Their service quality went up. They say everybody's so much happier. People stopped quitting. Those folks were in pretty bad shape with those long hours.
Bernie Sanders, I know you mentioned this too. We mentioned before, AI is an asset to this campaign. It seems that we mentioned the other day, I don't know what we were talking about, the fact that, 6 years ago, no employer in America would have said we can have a hybrid workplace and do well. And obviously, almost everybody's hybrid or some variation, and it's working fine, suggests that change is acceptable. So give us some examples of companies people might know where they're trying this and are quite happy. And at the same time, what is the state of the movement?
So companies you might know, ThreadUp, started by some BC students, which is a used clothing swap. Kickstarter was the lead company in our second trial. That's a crowdfunding site. Bolt, which is another tech, Wanderlust, Lamborghini went to a 4-day week. Yeah. Unilever in Australasia. Those folks are on this program. Who else?
And is there a move it seems to me, if it turns out your research, this is not like a 50-50 split with 90+% of the companies doing it. And you acknowledge in your thing, this is probably more doable in the white collar world than it may be. But, let's get moving somewhere. Why are more companies not rushing to do this? Forget how the employee does, but from their perspective, they're able to retain, hire, all those sort of things. Why is there not a rush to do this?
Well, I think it's for the same reason that, number one, we could have done work from home long before COVID because we had the technology and didn't. I think the better example is maybe why are they pushing employees to come back into the workforce when people don't want to do it and it's working so well? I think it's just conservatism. Yeah. And that's why also I think you're seeing it more from the smaller entities than, we don't have the Ford Motor Company. That was the first really big company to go to a 5-day week in 1926. We don't have the Ford Motor Company yet. We do have some bigger companies like our hospital chain, 35,000 employees, but they've only done it for certain units. Or we had a 5,000 person company in the UK. They did it for their first 1,000. Now they're rolling it out to all 5. So I think they're just,
Cautious. And stuck in their ways, yeah.
Some people are texting about teachers. Could we ever have a 4-day school week?
There are increasing numbers of school districts mostly in red states where they're not paying people. They're giving them 4-day weeks in lieu of, as a way to get teachers in. It's a little more complicated there because in a lot of those cases, they're lengthening the school day which I don't love.
And what about, and if you're trying to get stuff done, you've got little kids, having them home is not helpful.
Right. And so some of those places are providing some care on the Friday, or I don't know. It's not optimal the way it's being done in schools.
Are any creative you remember this. In 2008, when John Huntsman is running for governor, we're in New Hampshire. He's walking down Radio Row, and I run over to him and say, can we do an interview with you? And he said, yeah. And he said something like he had a sense. He said, why are you so interested? And I said, because you implemented a 4-day work week. And he said, well, I have bad news for you. It was repealed last week. So that was in 2008 or something. But are there any governments that are either providing incentives, thinking of doing this for a subset of their employees, anything like that?
Lots. So the Scottish national government and the Portuguese have both run trials. The Polish just announced a trial. The city-states in UAE have gone to 4.5 days. The city of Tokyo has put all its employees on a 4-day.
Tokyo, wow.
How long's that been going on?
That's like a couple months.
Because you hear the Japanese work week is very long, but not all
it's
places.
Less than America. They work less than Americans
they do?
now. Yes.
Oh.
Because they kept reducing. So in the U.S., we've got the city of Golden, Colorado, which started with its police department on this program, and they were a client of the organization 4-Day Week Global that I've been working with, and then now they're working on rolling it out to everyone. San Juan Islands, I just had a recent call with someone there. They're on a 4-day week. The local government in Cambridge, it's called South Cambs, Cambridgeshire, England, put everybody on a 4-day week. They had a massive cost savings because they were having trouble recruiting people. So they saved, the equivalent of about $900,000 in U.S. dollars.
We should ask Mayor Wu about this on the 8th.
We should. Why do I think you're working 7 days a week, Juliette Shore?
I'm not.
Yeah, are you 4 days, 5 days?
I started taking Fridays very casually.
You don't feel guilty?
Not anymore.
Before you leave, a small business person for a medium-sized business person is listening and saying to him or herself, what are the first steps I should take to explore whether this will work for me? What do you tell them?
They can email me. I do like presentations, just totally pro bono, just happy to talk to you. There are also consultants you can hire.
I'll take free, and considering you're the expert. What's your email address?
It's juliette.shore@bc.edu. Shore is SCHOR.
That's great.
Yeah, be in touch. I've done so many Zooms and also for City of Cambridge and other local governments around in the area. Lots of people are interested. We've got bills going in Maine and New York, and we'll probably get the Massachusetts bill refiled soon.
That's great.
Now, I would just, he's going on and on how great it is. I would like to point out to you that we were supposed to have the week off this week, 4th of July, the whole staff, but we don't. We're here today because Jim insisted that we had to come in case the Supreme Court.
But you know what this is called, Marjorie? A 1-day work week.
This is a 1-day work. It should have been a 5-day vacation, but because of Jim, Jim, who's raving over there about 4-day work weeks. We're all here.
Juliet, this book is fabulous. Your research is fabulous. We're really glad to see you. People should go buy it and do it. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
Come back in
A
6 months
pleasure.
or something. Give us an update
Yeah,
on this. That'd be
absolutely.
great. Okay.
Is it the start of a crusade, Jim?
Well, no, I've been doing the crusade, getting nowhere.
Oh,
She's
okay.
going to get somewhere.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Thank you very much.
See you, Juliet.
We've been speaking with Boston College economist and sociologist Juliet Schor. The book is 4 Days a Week, the life-changing solution for reducing employee stress, improving well-being, and working smarter. You know, you read this book and you feel uplifted about possibilities, and we need that in this particular moment. Boston Globe travel writer Christopher
Great to
Muther
see you,
is
Juliet.
here after this quick break. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
World War II ended nearly 80 years ago, and recently 2 men who survived the war met for the first time. One was an American soldier who liberated a concentration camp. The other, a Jewish man who was nearly killed there.
That anybody survives those camps is a wonderful thing, and I'm so happy to meet him.
I'm Elsa Chang. That story on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Gloucester Stage, presenting The Garbologists, a rousing buddy comedy set to the background of a 19-ton garbage truck. Opens Thursday, July 3rd. Tickets available at gloucesterstage.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're on vacation starting tomorrow because of me, by the way. I decided there should be vacation all days this week except for one day. We're back live.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Excuse me, I'm speaking right now.
You could have gone away for the whole weekend. Could have been away for 10 days.
On July.
Not happening.
Well, you would have missed Juliet Schor.
That's
and
right.
What's his
And
name?
Christopher Muther. Okay.
Joined on Zoom by our very own Carmen Sandiego. That'd be Boston Globe travel writer Christopher Muther, allegedly just back from Spain, so he's a little jet lagged. He says whatever. Christopher, nice to see you.
Great to see you. Although now that I know I didn't have to be here today and it's your fault, I'm a little angry.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. You know, we're all big fans of White Lotus. Third season, I don't think was as good as the first two, but it was still pretty good. And you talk about possibly going to Kenya to film the next one. But when I read the story, I thought, gee, why haven't I ever met Christopher Muther's wife? How come I haven't met the wife, Christopher?
That's a very good question. What's the deal? It's okay. But...
She has a bunch of different names because I had to keep coming up with fake names for my fake wife. And I think we should give the listeners a bit of context.
I think
we should. Exactly. Tell us about the wife.
Before my husband comes for me. So I wrote a story about how Mike White needs to film the next season of White Lotus, basically in a safari camp in Africa. And the specific one he needs to do it in is in Kenya. And it's called Mahali, Missouri. And it's owned by Sir Richard Branson.
Yeah.
And it's a safari camp that is so kind of over the top. You know, think of a White Lotus, 4 seasons, but transported to the middle of, the Serengeti, and just every opulent detail perfect, but in the middle of nowhere. So my pitch in my story is that Mike White needs to film the next season here because it's like ideal, down to like the mix of moneyed guests who are there. But let me just circle back quickly to my wife. One of the excursions while we were in the safari camp was to go to one of the traditional villages nearby. And it was actually a traditional village, kind of a little old Sturbridge village, but people actually live there still. And it was a group of myself, and I traveled with 7 other people who happened to be all gay. I mean, I'm not myself, but they are. And we were in a hut, and sort of an elderly woman of that village asked where our wives were. This,
great story.
8 gay men, like she just sees 8 men, like, where are your wives? We just kind of looked at each other.
So, Christopher,
faces.
And on a serious moment, Marjorie and I both had the same reaction. I Googled it before I finished your piece to read that homosexuality is illegal in Kenya. Were you and your buddies not nervous about being there to begin with?
This is where I can finally, push the blame onto somebody else. This was actually vacation. I wasn't even going to write a story about it. Because it's vacation and my job involves planning travel all the time, I let other people handle it. I knew nothing about this trip until I was on the plane and started reading about it.
Oh my God.
So, then I had to hide all of my pride outfits, my drag outfits. I'm kidding, I didn't have any of those things.
But would you, if you had known, would you have gone?
It's a good question. I probably wouldn't have. But in looking back on it, I'm glad that I did. I asked some of the people in the camps that we were at, when I got a sense that they were okay, how it was for gay people who went to Kenya as vacationers. I'm not talking about people who live there day to day. And I think because so many types of people go on safari, it's not something that's really paid attention to. As tourists, I obviously can't speak for people who live there. I'm sure it's very different. But we didn't face any problems. But I probably wouldn't, because I'm usually pretty conscientious about where I'm going for travel and spending money. However, in the end, like I said, I stayed in this amazing over-the-top safari camp, so I'm not going to complain about that part.
Yeah,
but wait. Over-the-top safari camp, it sounded totally beautiful. Is this not the piece where you mentioned at another safari camp down the road, a lion had eaten one of the guests, and another one, a lion had eaten... No, I'm serious. Isn't that in this piece?
Well, I mean, Jim, you're forgetting that I'm like a brave adventurer of travel.
Yeah.
I'm out there. I'm not like one of these Rick Steves going into cathedrals and cushy cities. I'm in a cushy safari camp with lions ready to eat me.
How much of this deal, I know it sounded incredibly low, how much did this cost you?
Because it was vacation, I don't have to tell you. And actually,
how much?
I really don't know, because we paid for an entire trip as opposed to individual. Normally, if I were doing this, I would book it individually. When I looked back at prices, because I knew people would start asking, it looked like it was about $1,200 a night.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a steal, really.
A steal.
We're talking to Christopher Muther.
So I didn't know, because I never fly anywhere. I hate to fly. But apparently people are sitting in other people's seats on airplanes, like the business class, when they've bought coach, and refusing to move.
What a shocker that is.
Oh, my God. Do tell.
There's this phenomenon that I noticed more and more. I mean, it's been going on forever, obviously, but I think people are getting more brazen about it. And I had just read and heard so many tales of this happening that I thought, I need to write a story. So there's this whole idea of seat squatters is what we call them, the people who are trying to sit in a better seat that isn't their own. And they're pretty unapologetic.
Yeah.
They get caught, and sometimes they'll even argue back that it's their seat, even if it's not. It's at the same time, another phenomenon has really risen, which is the seat switchers. And these are the folks who are too cheap to pay for, seats together. If there's an option where they have to pay for seats to choose the seats, they don't want to. So then they will then ask people to switch seats around so they can sit next to their spouse or their kids. And it puts those people who, actually paid for a seat or chose a seat in an awkward spot when you have someone rudely asking, or maybe not even rudely asking, to switch seats.
Yeah, because you'd feel bad if it were a mother with a 3 or 4-year-old or something. I mean, the teenagers, the heck with them, but the little kids, you'd feel bad that you were a terrible person.
Speak for yourself. So you allegedly provide a public service giving some advice here as to how people should handle it. By the way, it is when you do pay for a seat, especially if it's an upgrade cost kind of thing, it is a little intimidating to tell somebody this is mind.
Are you kidding? This woman paid $4,300 to fly to Hawaii.
And when she finally moved, she took this special
She took all her special gifts
with her.
But if I paid $4,300, believe me, I wouldn't go back to the row 39.
But wait a second. But the takeaway from this, I think, if I recall, is get the flight attendant involved. Is that what you were saying? Is that right?
Yes, definitely get the flight attendant involved. If I think I've never had it happen to me in a deliberate sense. Obviously, I've gotten into planes. Sometimes someone is accidentally in my seat.
Yeah.
I know this. I look at my boarding pass and I'll say something and they're like, "Oh, so sorry." It happens all the time. What also happens though is when people are trying to, switch seats without any kind of official authorization, and if they start getting, angry about it, you don't want to wind up in a viral video on TikTok yelling at someone. So yes, get the flight attendant over and, because it's kind of their job to straighten all this stuff out, make sure the plane is boarded properly. And in some cases, that's how they track who's on the plane and make sure everyone who is supposed to be on the plane is on the plane by looking at the seating chart. So if you've got someone different in the seating chart, it could throw them off too. So they also want to know.
So you end this piece with you quote this alleged etiquette expert. Is this a friend of yours
Let me first correct you. It's called Jetiquette.
Oh, Jetiquette, excuse me.
Jetiquette.
My apologies. Well, this Jetiquette expert, can I read his advice and tell
Please.
me how you feel about this? Marjorie, listen to this carefully, will you please?
I've got it right in front of
me. This is a Jetiquette expert.
Jetiquette.
Never take what isn't yours.
Right.
Respect is the best souvenir. Bring it everywhere. It's a woman. I'm sorry. Bring it everywhere you go. Manners fly first class, even in coach.
I think that's lovely.
Does this person make a living doing this or what? I'm serious.
She also writes fortune cookie fortunes for inside. Kidding. She doesn't. She's lovely and very smart. I actually thought this was quite inspiring.
I did too.
Apparently you did. It's your kicker. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like a Miss Manners sort of thing. And I love Miss Manners. I bet you love Miss Manners too. She's great.
Yeah, I mean, I liked this because it's all true and it's very sort of succinctly tied together. Not just because it's the kicker of my story, but also because it's the kicker of my story. Okay. Now, it's the idea of like having respect and manners on a plane. I think a lot of people forget in their anxiety of getting a carry-on crammed in the overhead bin, or the idea of like hearing babies crying, all of those things. It's definitely true. I just want to throw into this because yesterday when I was flying back from Spain, I was on JetBlue. They have a new direct flight, which is why I was going to Madrid. And I was sitting back in steerage, of course, not in Mint, which is the first class on JetBlue. And there was a woman in first class, Mint on JetBlue, who had two sons with her, and she brought the sons. They were probably, 8, 9, 10, to steerage economy, dropped them, and went back to Mint. She told them, "Don't bother me unless you're bleeding or stop breathing." I was like, I could not believe this. I thought my mother was bad.
Oh my God.
This was horrible.
That's terrible.
So did you monitor the kids? What was their deal like?
Well, I mean, I don't think she ever came back to check on them, which I also found quite shocking. And at the end of the flight, when people were, leaving the plane, she didn't even come back to make sure they got off the plane safely.
Oh my God.
Like, I made sure that they got out. I was like in the row across from them. And so I let them go first. I followed them behind. I got out into the area where, into the airport, and the mother's standing there, like on her phone or something, not even like caring where her kids are. Anyway, that's my rant.
What'd you say to her? Did you say something to her?
I said nothing, and there were no flight attendants around.
You know what I would have said in a moment of seriousness? I would have walked up to that woman. I want to be clear right now, and said, "Excuse me, respect is the best souvenir. Bring it wherever you go. Manners fly, Mint, even in coat. It's steerage," is what I would have.
Yeah.
That's what I would have said. Okay,
I'm going to have a T-shirt made for
I wish
you
you
that
would.
says
Send
that
me a
on it,
copy,
Jim.
extra large.
Okay,
Talking to Chris from You're the travel guy for the Boston Globe.
I never heard of the Godfrey Hotel in downtown Crossing.
You never heard of it?
No, I haven't. But apparently it's the 6th best hotel in the country. What's so great about it?
I mean, so this really shocked me much the way the mother who left your kids in economy did, but in a better way. It shocked me because normally when you read about hotels that are named like best whatever in the country, it's really extravagant places or super pricey. And the Godfrey, which I've stayed at a bunch of times for stories, I've always liked. It's super reasonable, and I think it's like really well designed without being over the top. So when I saw that it was the sixth best hotel in the country. I am jet lagged, remember? Voted by the readers of TripAdvisor. I was really surprised because it's not, the Four Seasons in Koh Samui, Thailand. It's the Godfrey in downtown Crossing.
Even the name, the Godfrey.
So you wrote in your piece, you've been there a number of times.
Yeah, so what's so great about it?
No, but I want that one, but two, this is a real question too. If you go there when it opens, I understand because that's your job, and you maybe check back on it a couple of years later, why would you go numerous times to any hotel unless there's something special going on?
That's between me and my secret wife.
But that's
what's
very
so special
conscientious of him.
Sort of. I mean, what's so special? Why does this deserve special rating, whatever it is? Why?
I mean, I think it deserves it because it's just a really well-run hotel. The service is really important, I think, for hotels. It's like really near the top. It's like very, very, they're very attentive there, which I feel like I don't see a lot in the hotels. Like a chain hotel, I usually don't see that. The other thing that I really like about the Godfrey is the location. It's like right in downtown Crossing. Yeah. It's it's like right in the center of things, and also it's just a really beautiful historic building, which I never even realized it was a beautiful historic building until I started researching it the first time I wrote about it.
Is that Ruka restaurant in there? Is that in the Godfrey? The Ruka?
Yes.
That's a good restaurant. Actually, a really good restaurant.
There's also the coffee place is in there as well.
George Howell.
Charles Howell.
George Howell.
Charles,
Charles is his
Mr.
cousin,
Howell.
distant cousin of the...
He was on Gilligan's Island. He was stranded. Mr. Howell.
I was speaking to a restaurant owner the other day, whose name shall not be mentioned, who has been nominated for, got into the semifinals of the James Beard years in a row. And this year, I won't say man or woman, this person didn't make it, and said making it is a huge boost for your business, even making it to the semifinals. And not making it means you don't have that boost. Do the same things work in the hotel industry when a hotel that's a surprise maker of a list like this makes it onto a list? Does that give a real boost to their business, I assume?
I think it does. I don't know if it's as measurable as it would be for a chef in a restaurant. But for instance, if you then were looking, let's say you live in St. Louis and you're coming to Boston for 4th of July weekend and you start Googling hotels.
Right, that's right.
You look at TripAdvisor and this comes up and you've hit Google, and then my story might come up, and then you might start looking more and more. So in a way, the way people look now for where they stay, I think it will have a boost. Not necessarily, like I said, a giant boost, but also, people who know my level of good taste also would, of course, jump in on this.
Right.
So, by the way, what's the price? What's the room cost in this joint?
Like every hotel in Boston, it depends wildly on supply and demand. So let's say if you go in January, February, you can get a room for like $150 a night, sometimes less. And if you go this time of year, it's like, $300 or $400 a night.
We don't have time, unfortunately, to discuss your trip to Portugal. Do it next month. But a texter texted in when they heard you were coming on during our so-called billboard at 12 and says, don't chop up octopus. They're intelligent and don't even taste good. That's half right. They taste fabulous. We stopped because of Cy Montgomery, Sullivan Octopus. I want to, you were in Portugal. We'll go through it in greater depth next time. But you were in a cooking class in Portugal, and your assignment was to chop the legs off a live octopus, right? And you refused. Isn't that what it was? And you refused to do it, no?
I like your version better because it makes me sound like a real humanitarian.
Oh, it was dead?
But, it was dead already, yeah.
Oh.
But I just, didn't want to be, I get kind of grossed out by it, and then I just watched
So would you slice a tomato instead? Is that what you did?
Exactly.
Oh. Boy, you have to eat it fast if it's already dead, or cook it fast, right?
It was this was very fresh.
Very
it was
fresh.
a cooking class that I took, and again, context in Portugal. So of course there was octopus, and we were learning how to make specific dishes. And yeah, the octopus legs were slid in front of me, and I asked another woman if she would switch, much like I ask people to switch seats on planes all the time. Kidding, I don't do that.
Yeah, especially if they want you to go to the middle seat. That's brutal.
Yeah, who wants? Is anybody? We
No
only
one
have
wants the
15
middle
seconds.
seat.
Anybody prefer the middle seat?
No.
Unless they're trying to meet somebody.
You should put that question out to your listeners and see if anyone prefers. There must be someone who.
If you're in a couple, it's not okay because you can lean in on the other person to sleep. But if you're by yourself in the middle seat, you're really stuck.
Marjorie.
Yes.
Never take what isn't yours.
Okay.
Respect is the best souvenir.
Okay.
Bring it everywhere you go, including to work. That includes you, Christopher Muther.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, Jim. Please remember those words in your daily life.
I will. I'm going to do my best. Thank you, and thanks to you.
We have been speaking with Christopher Muther, Boston Globe travel writer. I hope you have a great 4th of July holiday.
Nice to see you, Christopher.
Coming up after this quick break, Paul Dama, a Boko Haram survivor and the manager of Roxbury's Nigerian restaurant Suya Joy, was stopped on his way to church and detained by ICE last week. He's still detained. We're going to talk with his sister, chef owner Cecilia Lazat. She's next on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Trusted, local news.
The State Education Board passed new regulations that restrict the controversial use of timeout and seclusion in schools.
GBH News.
Seen a surge in requests for air conditioners over the past few days.
Here for what matters to you.
President Trump's proposed budget would slash National Science Foundation support for graduate students and freeze funding for thousands of early career scientists.
GBH 89.7. Online at gbhnews.org.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Discovery Museum in Acton, hosting its inaugural Nature Play Festival on Friday, July 11th, offering immersive nature-based activities outdoors and inside from 11 to 7, open to all. Learn more at discoveryacton.org. And the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, commemorating 250 years of history, independence, and innovation since the American Revolution. Learn more at massachusetts250.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Paul Dama survived Boko Haram's torture in Nigeria in 2018. Came to America, now works as the manager at his family's Nigerian restaurant, Suya Joint, Nubian Square. Early this month, while on his way to church, he was taken into custody by ICE. We're joined now by his sister, chef and owner of Suya Joint, Cecilia Lazat. Cecilia, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about the situation.
So tell us what happened on June the 15th.
All right. So on the 14th, which is a Saturday night, I was with myself, my brother, and my daughter, Vanessa Lazat, and we hugged one another, said goodbye at the end of our shift on Saturday. And on the 15th, on Father's Day, I woke up, as usual, just going through my phone, and then I see a restricted number coming through. I was kind of skeptical to answer it, but when I had to answer, just for me to hear my brother's voice on the other side, he says, "So Cecilia, Ninifa and Okeni. Hi, Cecilia, this is Paul. They've picked me up." And I'm like, "What do you mean they picked you up?" So at that point, I felt sick to my stomach. And so I asked him, where was he going? He mentioned to me that he just came down to his car on his way to go to church. And he did notice like activity around his apartment where he lives in Brockton, Massachusetts. But instead of going back to the house, he got into his car to drive. And then he was followed by, first of all, a car. And then after he pulled over to the side of the street, there were like about 4 to 5 vans that just came and barricaded him. "You're under arrest. What's your name? Get out of your car," which he abided, he followed, and he cooperated with them.
How he came? Correct me if I'm wrong, Cecilia. He came to the country legally. He did overstay his visa. He had a DUI on his record, but no other criminal or no other problems in his background. Tell us a little bit about your brother and what he did in this country.
So yes, apart from working with me at this restaurant Suya joint in Boston, he also works with at Nexus, and I believe it's what you call this thing like home health care, where he helps the disabled and stuff like that. Law-abiding citizen, comes to check on his niece Vanessa and Erica, goes out to birthday parties or his birthday parties, and he's always at the restaurant, just makes everybody feel at home, both the Nigerians and non-Nigerians. So when you come over there, there's like a sense, there's a comfort where it's like, yes, I feel like I'm in a establishment that does have African food, just from interaction with community members. And he's helped even during COVID-19, like to give out food to what you call this in like the frontline workers when everywhere was shut down. So he was very much involved with that.
How is he, when you've spoken to him, how is he? He had a hearing, and my understanding is he has another bond hearing on July 3rd, I believe. Not the 3rd, yeah. How is he doing, and how are you doing?
I personally am distraught. I think like each time I get this question, when I think my tears are done, I'm not going to cry anymore, but I just get so much emotion. I feel really teary-eyed, and then like I just don't want to repeat what happened on Father's Day. And then in terms of how is he feeling, apparently he's being almost like anticipating this, expecting it just because we see it on the news. Yeah. So when it happened, he did cooperate with them. He did not have any reason to fight with anybody. He's grateful that he was able to actually make, I think, like the first initial phone call when he was in Burlington, Mass, to let me know that this is where he is. And then after that, they proceeded to take him to Dover, New Hampshire, where right now, on a daily basis, it's almost like, okay, what's going to happen? Because people are being transferred to any other detention center without giving the ability to call your family members to say, okay, this is what's happening. So it actually happens in the middle of the night when the inmates wake up, like, okay, 5 people are gone, 3 people, and nobody knows where they are. So I am crossing my fingers, as well as Paul, very, very prayerful to see that he's still right just here in New Hampshire, where we're able to either go visit him if we have to.
You know, it's important to point out that according to his attorney, all his work authorizations and legal paperwork is up to date, and he was in good standing and trying to comply with what he needed to comply with. So do you have any sense of how they even singled him out?
I do not have any sense of that. The only thing that sometimes when I speak to him where he is, apparently there are a lot of asylum case seekers where they are. So it seems like, I don't know, I'm just guessing, maybe they washed off everyone that has a pending asylum case. Yeah. And they're asking them to start all over again. So the first hearing that took place, it was just, okay, here's another piece of paper, go and reapply. And with that reapplying, we don't know if it's something that is going to fast track it. Nobody knows.
Do you know, when Trump was first running, I mean, a lot of people have said who have come here from other countries and were trying to get citizenship or had followed the orders, etc. They did not expect this. They expected the president and ICE to go after people that were, you know, thieves and sexual predators and that kind of stuff. They didn't think they would go after people that were trying their best to do a good job in the United States. What did your community think?
The same way. On a daily basis, when we post asking for request help, that's what I'm seeing, where, yes, they said that they're going after criminals. They're going after people that have more offense than what it is that Paul has. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing others, even just speaking with Paul, where he is, there are a few people, I was just at work and they picked me up, and their record is clean. There's nothing. So in that aspect, I have no idea. I think there was one person that it was almost like just a change of address. He moved from his sister's house to another place, but he didn't change it on time, and he was also picked up. So all the stories varies.
Sissy, I want to read. Sarah Betancourt, our colleague, has done wonderful reporting on these things. In 2018, as I mentioned, Dama was kidnapped and tortured by the notorious Boko Haram, a group designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. He was released only after his family paid the ransom, fled the country. If he was deported, what would happen to him in your estimation?
My estimation is almost like, okay, so you thought you were gone and you were safe. No, they'll just pick him up, and that's not because he's now going to be a target. It's on the news. He's seeing this, and it's like now it's high risk.
So how can people? We're talking to Cecilia Lozado, who's Paul Dama's sister, and owns Suya Joint in Nubian Square.
Which she's worried about having to close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without him, how can people help him and also help you and your business?
So right now we've been getting a lot of help, which I'm very, very grateful to the community. We created a GoFundMe just to help out with his living expenses when he comes out, because now it's like 3 days right now. 3 weeks, that he hasn't been to work. So all the living expenses are adding up. And then the attorney fees, it's just adding up. Any attorney that you speak to, until you get a retainer, they're not able to open your file. So how can we help through the GoFundMe, and keep praying for us, sharing what we're sharing on Instagram, so that anyone that can assist, help us, or even give us any kind of resources, we really appreciate it. But as of right now, we're crossing our fingers, being very, very hopeful, keeping faith for July 3rd.
And the GoFundMe is under his name, Paul Dama, Dama?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's under his name.
Okay,
yes.
just wanted to check.
And go to the restaurant, which is spectacular, and help to keep this business alive as well. Cecilia, will you stay in touch with us? And we hope you will. And let us know what's going on in any way we can get the story out, please.
Yes, I will. I'll definitely keep in touch. I have your information, and I'll keep any kind of update that comes in. And please just keep us in prayers. And I really appreciate you having me to have a conversation about what's going on.
We really appreciate taking the time.
And good luck.
Good luck to you and your brother.
Thank you so much.
We've been speaking with Cecilia Lazat, chef and owner of Roxbury's restaurant, Suya Joint. Her brother, Paul Dama, Dama, was taken by ICE. After the 1 o'clock news, you're going to be joined by retired federal judge Nancy Gertner on the latest Supreme Court news. You're listening to Boston Public Radio.
The best way to support your GBH radio listening is by becoming a GBH sustainer. It takes just 2 minutes to enroll and a few dollars a month on your credit card. Small monthly contributions, huge impact. Learn more at gbh.org/sustainer.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Newport Mansions, presenting Richard Morris Hunt in a New Light, a groundbreaking exhibition examining the architect's impact on American culture and his vision for a gilded American civilization. Tickets at newportmansions.org. And the Cape Playhouse in Dennis Village, now playing Rent, an unforgettable musical that changed Broadway. Tickets at capeplayhouse.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR. The Supreme Court wrapped up another term of far-right, far-reaching decisions on reproductive rights, healthcare, and giving Trump more executive power than any president ever. Here to explain it all and to tell us what's likely ahead, retired federal judge Nancy Gertner.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then, because we all need a break from this national news nightmare, ending today with a summer catch-all. July 4th is around the corner. How are you preparing? When it comes to picking up ripe fruit, some of us were gifted with a natural ability to spot dynamite from dud. Others continue whacking aimlessly in the Whole Foods produce section. Got any tips for picking the perfect summer produce or melon? And any other 4th of July food thoughts, from cheeseburgers to chicken to kebabs to hot dogs. Call or text. That's next on the third hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Senate is holding what's known as a vote-a-rama on President Trump's major tax cut and spending bill. Lawmakers taking up and voting on dozens of amendments. Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota is presiding over a process in which the GOP can only afford to lose one more vote and still pass the bill.
Let's vote. This is good for America. This is good for the American people. It's good for working families. And it's been a long debate. I know people are weary. But at the end of the day, we want to get this done so that this country is safer and stronger and more prosperous, not only for today, but for future generations of Americans.
Senators Rand Paul and Tom Tillis, who announced he will not run for re-election, opposed the massive legislation of spending cuts and tax breaks projected to add trillions to the deficit over 10 years. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and other Democrats are united against President Trump's bill.
Today, Senate Republicans have to decide: choose the American people or bow down to Donald Trump and his coterie of billionaires. Because this bill, as we have said for months, steals people's health care, jacks up their electricity bill, takes away their jobs, all to pay for tax breaks for billionaires.
The Senate's version of the bill cuts more than $1 trillion in health care funding, the bulk of it from Medicaid. The Congressional Budget Office estimates nearly 12 million more Americans will lose coverage in the next 10 years. North Idaho investigators are trying to determine a motive behind yesterday's deadly shooting in Coeur d'Alene. NPR's Kirk Sigler reports police say the suspect, who was found dead but has not been publicly identified, set a fire and shot at responding firefighters.
At Canfield Mountain here in the city of Coeur d'Alene, smoke is ominously hanging thick in the air, and you can smell it from a brush fire that was intentionally set to ambush dozens of wildland firefighters who raced to this park adjacent to a neighborhood. 2 firefighters were shot and killed and another critically injured, and the sheriff here says he's fighting for his life. One of the deceased firefighters was from the city fire department, the other from Kootenai County. The shelter-in-place order is lifted, but the few people out walking their dogs here say it's eerily quiet when it would normally be busy, and everyone is still on edge and shocked by the killings. Kirk Sigler, NPR News, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Jury deliberations have begun in Sean Diddy Combs' trial in New York. The hip-hop mogul has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy charges. U.S. stocks trading higher this hour. The Dow's up 174 points at 43,991. From Washington, this is NPR News.
And from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston, I'm Judy Ewell. The Trump administration claims Harvard failed to protect Jewish students during Gaza-related protests, and it's now threatening to pull all remaining federal funding from the university. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kurt Carapezza reports Harvard has already lost billions in its fight with the federal government.
The U.S. Education Department's anti-Semitism task force says Harvard is a, quote, breeding ground for race discrimination. In a letter to the school's president, Alan Garber, federal officials claim Harvard was, at times, a willful participant in anti-Semitic harassment. The letter says if the school doesn't make changes, it could lose all of its federal money. Harvard says it strongly disagrees with the findings and has taken steps to fight campus bigotry. Kurt Carapezza, GBH News.
You can ride the MBTA for free on this 4th of July as Boston prepares to host up to 1 million people attending the fireworks display over the Charles. The T saying this morning you won't need fares to ride the bus line, subways, ferries, and the commuter rail. The subway will operate on a modified Saturday schedule with increased service from 3 in the afternoon through the end of service time, and the commuter rail will operate on a weekend schedule. Now, most trains will leave North Station and South Station on their final runs on the evening between 11:30 p.m. and midnight. The exception is if the fireworks are delayed on Friday. In that case, trains will leave up to 30 minutes later. In sports, the Red Sox host the Cincinnati Reds at Fenway tonight. Summer weather as June draws to a close today. Sunshine highs in the 80s this afternoon. Right now, 77 degrees in Boston.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for dedicated and forward-thinking individuals to join their growing team. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be on tape starting tomorrow. It should have been today, but Jim was complaining. So we have the next 4 days off. We're going to be back here on July 7th. On July 8th, we're going to be joined by the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. And on July 9th, we'll be joined by the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Campbell. Hello again, vacation
Jim
ruiner
is my name.
guy.
Before we introduce Judge Gertner, let me just say, in the NPR News, I think it's Thune, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate,
lying.
Quote, this bill is good for American people, good for American families. So I assume it must be, I figured I asked you, is it the $3 trillion added to the deficit, 11 million people thrown off Medicaid, the end of all the climate addressing tax incentives, the cutting of the funding for food stamps? What's the part that is good for the American people and good for American families?
I don't know. As I said before, I'm beside myself, but we're talking to Judge Gertner now.
Oh, no, we're not. For the latest, we are. We introduced her. That's how it goes. For the latest iteration of On the Docket, we are joined, actually, it's true now, on Zoom by retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. She's a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and a BPR contributor. Hello, Judge Gertner.
Hello.
So, Judge Gertner, Jim was saying before that you didn't seem as upset as he thought you should have been on Friday.
I didn't put it exactly that way.
About this ability of the president now to issue these executive orders and have the lower courts not restrain them. So tell us what you think about this. To me, this is hugely upsetting, like he could do almost anything.
What I actually said was there are a number of other lawyers and editorialists who are more concerned about the decision than Judge Gertner seemed to be. But that's what I said. Go ahead, Judge Gertner. I'm sorry.
Well, there's a half full and half empty problem, right? The half empty problem is that this court, after refusing to deal with nationwide injunctions that stopped Biden policies, walked in to take this case. And stop nationwide injunctions, which they had no problem with when those were injunctions, when they were enjoining Biden policies. In addition, the court allowed themselves to be gamed, and they were clearly gamed in this case. By that, I mean the government, in the birthright citizenship cases, which the government was losing from one end of the country to the other, it didn't matter who the judge was. Rather than going up on birthright citizenship, they went up on the preliminary injunction, on the nationwide injunction issue, so that they could get a victory. And worse, if the idea now would be that if they kept on losing cases involving individual plaintiffs rather than nationwide plaintiffs, they won't care. And so the cases will not go up to the Supreme Court. So it was very clever, and the Supreme Court allowed themselves to be manipulated. That was completely true. So that's the half empty part. The half full part is within, I think, a half an hour of this decision in the CASA case, the CASA birthright case, which was the one they were dealing with, the lawyers filed a motion for a nationwide class action. Within a half an hour.
Which allows them to circumvent the no national injunction thing.
To a degree, to circumvent, in the sense that there's now more steps that have to be taken. You have to find lawyers who will bring class actions. But the nationwide class action in the birthright case, which if the judge certifies, will get that case back to the Supreme Court. So it was not that the door was shut. Clearly, it meant that there's going to be more work to get these cases up. Nationwide injunctions, also the various states that brought these cases on behalf of the individuals in their state who can reasonably argue that when a New Jersey resident in a case that doesn't have in a state that doesn't have birthright citizenship crosses the border, what the hell are the New York officials supposed to do when they had birthright citizenship? I mean, the states can argue that this has to be nationwide because otherwise it is unadministrable.
So speaking of the unadministrable, just so I understand, there was a 30-day stay by the Supreme Court, and if during that 30-day period a class was not certified, it is correct, this is a question, not a statement, that in 28 states, the ending of birthright citizenship by Trump's executive order would be in effect. And in the 22 states that sued, it would not be in effect. Is that an accurate statement?
If there's not a nationwide injunction,
okay,
yeah.
Now,
if there's not a nationwide class, yes.
Right. And the place where I got doubly concerned after talking to you, I was reading a Washington Post, I think it was a Washington Post editorial, that was decrying this decision and mentioning, like you did, the way around it is to get class action certified. It said two things. One, it said, which I was unaware of, that this Supreme Court has made it more difficult to get classes certified, even though I would guess it wouldn't be that difficult here. But secondly, and this was much more troubling, which I missed on Friday, is Judge Alito, in his concurring opinion, basically said, and here again, correct me if I'm wrong, hey, don't try getting in through the back door by inappropriately certifying classes. So what I took away from that is when a class is certified, he's going to urge his colleagues to take up the issue of class certification and try to convince four of his colleagues at least that the class was inappropriately certified in every damn case where they try to use that method. That is what he's going to try to do, isn't it?
There's no question that that's what Alito will try to do. But again, Alito is also going to try to, support the Trump administration at almost every turn. Yeah. So I'm not sure that this is an additional impediment, but I'm not sure that this is catastrophic. So I mean, that's what I'm saying: half full, half empty.
Understood.
I mean, it is an outrageous decision on so many levels. There were lots of opportunities to deal with nationwide injunctions under Biden. If you remember, Judge Kaczmarek in Texas was a single judge in a single jurisdiction. And if you basically wanted to trash abortion, you would bring your case there and he would do a nationwide injunction doing whatever the anti-choice people wanted. No one had a problem. The Supreme Court, that issue was raised before the Supreme Court. They never addressed it. There were all sorts of proposals to deal with single member districts, making sure that other judges would bid on the case, making sure there would be some process for expedited appeal. There were lots of ways of dealing with it. They chose not to do it under Biden. They chose to do it, let me say, in the one case where nationwide injunctions make special sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is an unimaginable. One could say, you got to deal with nationwide injunctions, but in birthright citizenship, one can't be a citizen of New Jersey and not of New York. That just doesn't make any sense as a nation. So the decision is frightening because it portends a Supreme Court that seems more willing than even I believed to bend over backwards, to bend the knee to Trump. And that's shocking.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sotomayor, as we've read her blistering, as it's been described, decision from the bench, which I've read was done to make a point because they don't usually do that. And then I read with this also a nasty spat between Justice Jackson and Justice Amy Barrett over there. Usually things are more congenial among the justices, but I guess that's changing as well.
I don't see how it could not. I mean, essentially, Barrett's decision was dissing is the only word, to talk about this. I mean, it was essentially suggesting that Justice Jackson's decision was, based on thin air. They countered with, "You're making stuff up." I mean, it is pretty. The way Jackson describes it, court has shoved lower court judges out of the way in cases where executive action is challenged and gifted the executive with the prerogative of disobeying the law. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got to step back, which is how the court allowed itself to be gamed by the Trump administration.
Knowingly, you think? Knowingly.
Absolutely. The Trump administration did not want them to get birthright citizenship, so it went up on a procedural issue. And it's a procedural issue that would essentially require additional hoops to get this issue before them. And if you don't have a nationwide class and you're losing birthright citizenship as you are all around the country in those 22 states, they just won't appeal. So the issue won't get to the Supreme Court.
We're talking to former federal judge Nancy Gertner.
Just one last thing for non-lawyers like myself. A lot of all this executive action stuff happened when Congress became so unable to function that presidents couldn't get anything done. So Obama came in with his executive orders, and Biden came in with his, and then Trump came in with his. That I think is part of the backstory here. Okay, and that's the reason why they did it. And
I think, right. And let me just say one other thing. This is not just a question of an imperial presidency, because where it is this difficult to challenge, obviously nationwide orders, because they're coming from the federal government. There's also an imperial Supreme Court.
Yeah.
During the oral argument, it was clear that that everyone admitted that if the Supreme Court opined on an issue, it would be nationwide. So essentially, district courts don't have the ability to do a nationwide injunction except in the circumstances we described.
Yeah.
Courts of appeals do not. But lo and behold, the imperial Supreme Court can.
Power grab. It's a huge power grab for the Supreme Court without question. And the other thing, I was very quickly. I forgive me if I've asked you this before, but Trump managed to get all his emergencies, so-called emergencies, although the 3/4 of them didn't seem like an emergency to me, before the Supreme Court. That was not done when Biden had emergencies. Or if this was another kowtow to Trump, I presume.
Right. This is essentially. They were able to get the Trump administration was able to get emergency relief in cases in which you usually have to show irreparable harm.
Yeah.
So consider the deportation cases. Is the government irreparably harmed when individuals who are detained, detained abroad or in a detention facility in Texas cannot be sent to the place where they want them to go?
Yeah.
People are detained. If they are as dangerous as the Trump administration says, they're not going to do anything. But they were able to convince the court that unless orders were reviewed that didn't allow them to be deporting people willy-nilly, that was an emergency, which is just extraordinary.
Well, arguably, the irreparable harm is being done to the people who are going to be deported under these rules, not to the government. So, Nancy Gardner, in the spirit of fairness, there were a couple of decent decisions. One that affects a lot of people. This thing that says the requirement of the Affordable Care Act that some preventive care be given for free. But I want to get back to which is a just and reasonable outcome. Speaking of Justice Alito, he wrote the majority opinion, another 6-3 deal. So much for your Coney Barrett and your Roberts, the two people who are going to save America, Marjorie. Hate to keep rubbing that in, but I will continue. He basically, in this decision,
the worm is turned, I guess.
Parents with religious objections to books with LGBTQ themes can withdraw their kids from public schools when the books are discussed, which to me is troubling enough. But expert analysts, I'm not sure I fully understood this, said the Alito decision is much broader than that, and that he empowered people who claim religious objections to be able to demand that their kids be exempted from a whole host of things that they don't like, not just LGBTQ theme things, which is bad enough. Do you agree with that analysis?
I do. I mean, I think if this is a religious-based issue, then one can think about the wide range of religions and religious objections that people can have. And you begin to dissolve public schools. That's one thing, because it no longer is public. It becomes a curriculum that is much more keyed to individual, to personal interests, to religious proclivities on the one hand. And it also means that, it undermines teaching, right? The teachers who have watched this decision are troubled because they can't teach as they want to.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make.
Oh,
good.
This is a very funny confession. I remember that Orwell's 1984 was banned in my classroom. There were some parents who objected in, Flushing High School, where I went to school. And all I can tell you is, to this day, I can recite the dirty parts of 1984.
Go ahead.
It's something when you begin to highlight what is wrong, particularly about pornography, you wind up underscoring it for kids. And you want to sort of put kids in a bubble and have them not interact with the rest of the world is really, in my sense, very troubling. But the key issue is that it undermines teaching and it undermines public education.
I wasn't going to ask you this, but since you mentioned pornography, another decision on Friday was about how people had to certify out of a Texas case, right, that they were, is it above 18 or above 21?
I think so.
Above a certain
21.
age. And I believe the argument of the losing, and that was affirmed by the court, I think 6-3 too, I'm not sure. That was affirmed based on against the challenge, which said it was violating, I think, the free speech rights of people who were older than that age because they'd have to provide information to be able to access something. Was that the right decision in your estimation?
Oh, well, allowing...
requiring that there be certain identification provided to guarantee, to prove that you were above whatever the minimum age is.
I mean, the notion was that if you were going to go buy a book in a bookstore, physical bookstore, you might have to show, you might have to show your ID. Although I don't know that that's true, but you might have to show your ID. And on the internet, there's no mechanism physically showing the ID. The dissent was concerned that once you put your information online, you open yourself up to extortion, you open yourself up to hacking, and that would essentially be a disincentive for anyone to do this, even with respect to adult pornography. So adult pornography, that is not illegal. So the notion was that the logistics of this was going to undermine access. And that I think that would be true. Government is not about to require, that this be done in a way that can't be hacked. But the potential for extorting is pretty substantial in this situation. That was the basis for the dissent.
Mm-hmm. You know what I wonder, Judge Gertner, if you can say that parents can opt out, have their kids opt out of LGBTQ stuff in school, give parental rights over the teacher's rights in that situation, are we going to see a lawsuit soon from parents of trans kids saying, why are my rights subsumed to the government in this case? Why? It doesn't seem to, if you can make decisions about books, but you can't make decisions about your own child's medical care, it seems not in together.
But they're two, they're two different things which are troubling. So on the one hand is parents' religious beliefs, which this court is privileging more than any court ever has. And so if you want to opt out of a particular book because of the parents' religious beliefs, that's one thing. But trans rights, the right of trans kids, of trans parents, to talk about their issues is not similarly protected.
Because it's not a religious thing.
It's not a religious thing. I think, there was once a time when there were efforts to challenge restrictions on abortion. Claiming that restrictions on abortion were religious discrimination because it privileged those religions that believed that life began at conception, which was not the case of all religions. The court never went in that direction. So unless trans rights can be put into a religious bucket, which it may well, it's just not equivalent. The right to be heard and listened to and have your identities acknowledged for trans kids is not seen as the equivalent of the rights of religious minorities. And that's why
I was thinking about the more parental rights kind of way, but I guess parents just don't have the right to make. Basically they're saying parents don't have the right to make medical decisions for their children. That's what that decision says.
With respect, but
with respect to gender affirming care for minors.
But it's a medical decision.
Right. But as I said, I think that what we're seeing is a world in which trans rights, trans issues are simply not valued in the way that religious rights are.
So, Nancy, Judge Gertner, Pam Bondi, almost every day. There's so many stories that you read, I say this to Margie almost every day, that in any other setting would be the talk of America, or at least the talk of political culture, for days that almost don't even get 10 minutes of airtime, 10 minutes of talk time in this country. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, just fired 3 lawyers who were the first post-probationary lawyers who were fired because their involvement in the January 6th prosecutions. Let me state that again. The only people they fired who were prosecutors up until now, I believe, were people who were on probation. And my understanding is the only basis for their firing was because they participated in the prosecution of these January 6th defendants. Is that not something that would concern the whole legal community in America? And if it would, do they do anything about it, or are there just too many things to do petitions and letters and whatever about?
No, I mean, I think that there is a robust response. It's not necessarily one that hits the covers of the Boston Globe, although it should.
What's the robust response? It should, I agree.
Yeah,
what is
I mean,
the
robust response. So, for example, there are ethical charges that have been brought against Bondi for the decision she has made in the District of Columbia. That is one thing, and this probably would be added to it. She's bound by both ethical rules. There are ethical rules about the prosecution function, and those ethical rules do not permit politicization of the function. And so this is a politicization. This is firing people. By the way, these are firing people for cases that, when prosecutors get assigned a case, they get assigned a case. They don't have the choice of going to this case or that case. So this is just a punishment that is extraordinary. You take the case that's coming in the door. You take the case that was assigned to you. And just because these cases were assigned to them, that then somehow that's tainted. But there are efforts to deal with the ethics of this administration. There will be, I would predict, ethical charges against Beauvais for given the whistleblower who claimed that he was giving instructions to ignore the courts. That could be an issue. So
Beauvais,
yes,
by the way, is Trump's former lawyer who's now at the Justice Department, who Trump has nominated to a federal appellate court.
Who says that Trump should ignor judicial rulings.
That's what the reports are.
So I mean, there are efforts. There are efforts by various overseers, most board of bar overseers in most states, to address the ethics of this administration, of the Department of Justice, of the prosecutors who are misrepresenting. I mean, it's very interesting. I'm trying to write something about this, actually, Jim and Marjorie, but it's like there was a period of time when we all thought that things would be different in court, whereas Trump can lie when he talks to people and other people can lie. In court, lawyers are bound by the rules that you have to be accurate, you can't misrepresent, you can't deceive. And we are seeing the opposite. And the way to address that will be contempt proceedings in courts, which is what you see in Judge Boasberg in one of the alien deportation cases. And I suspect you'll be seeing in proceedings as well before the Board of Bar Overseers.
I'm smiling now at what you said. There's an interesting question from an anonymous texter that I think only a former federal judge can answer. So, how did Clarence Thomas vote on the porn case? Because he has some familiarity with the issue. Was it Long John Silver? Was that not?
Long Dong Silver.
Long Dong. Oh, excuse me. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's right.
Can I raise one more thing here?
I want to raise one more thing, too.
You may do that.
Okay. So I just want to go back to the first case. The Supreme said that ended lower courts' practice of issuing these nationwide injunctions. So as Sotomayor wrote in her dissent, that the threat is to birthright citizenship today. Tomorrow, a different administration may try to seize firearms from law-abiding citizens or prevent people of certain faiths from gathering to worship. So those are constitutional rights, right? The Second Amendment and the freedom to practice religion. So is that true that he can just get rid of constitutional rights?
Birthright citizenship is in the 14th Amendment.
I know, but I'm thinking of other things as well.
Well, no, that was a very clever comment in her dissent, because she was saying to people who support the right to bear arms, for example, that this could happen to you, and you would lose the ability to address it in just the same way that the majority was trying to do under these circumstances. So I remember in law school the notion that you could have constitutional rights without remedies. What are the constitutional rights without the ability to enforce it? They are now the Supreme Court, are creating, constitutional rights, although they're not even addressing that it's a constitutional right, but undermining the ability to enforce it. I go back to where we started. I refuse to say that these cannot be. That these cases can't be brought. It's just that the Supreme Court has created hurdles which make no sense in general and surely not in this case.
Okay.
All right. Judge Gardner, it's been a pleasure, sort of.
Wait a minute, I thought I was your therapist.
Well, we were talking at the beginning of the show, really, how difficult it is for people to go about their daily lives and kind of enjoy things like a beautiful 4th of July when they feel this blanket of horror descending over their head every day.
Well, we also discussed one other thing, which I assume will be no news to Judge Gardner, is while people are focused, for example, in the midterms, we were talking about the fact that, for example, the first of the Medicaid cuts doesn't happen until after the midterms.
Right.
And a lot of people are putting hope in midterms. But even if the Democrats prevail in the midterms, there's still a Supreme Court that is still going to have the majority it has for many, 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 many presidencies in all likelihood. That's the depressing part. In any case.
No, but there, like a Congress that is not sitting on the couch could make changes to nationwide injunctions that would satisfy the court.
Well, not while Trump is president, right?
Right, but I mean a new Congress.
Yeah, that's a good
deal
point.
with some of the procedural concerns about nationwide injunctions, and no problem to that.
But I've done the research. When his son is president, he wouldn't sign that either. So I really don't think Don Jr. is our hope, Judge Gardner. So
never mind.
See you soon.
Oh God.
Judge Gardner, enjoy
Thank
the
you
floor.
very
It's great
much,
to see
Judge
you.
Gardner.
Thanks so much.
We've been speaking with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. She's a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and a Boston Public Radio contributor. Up next, we're opening the lines, doing a July 4th catch-all, chilling and grilling. Is it only men that man the grill? How to select the best watermelon? Corn on the cob, on or off? And how do you keep corn fresh if you're not going to eat it for a couple of days? Whatever you want to talk about, your 4th of July food-themed session to get us off these horrible politics is next. 877-301-8970 is the number to call or text. Listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
World War II ended nearly 80 years ago, and recently 2 men who survived the war met for the first time. One was an American soldier who liberated a concentration camp. The other, a Jewish man who was nearly killed there.
That anybody survives those camps is a wonderful thing, and I'm so happy to meet him.
I'm Elsa Chang. That story on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org. And Newport Mansions, presenting Richard Morris Hunt in a New Light, a groundbreaking exhibition examining the architect's impact on American culture and his vision for a gilded American civilization. Tickets at newportmansions.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're almost on vacation, Marjorie. Starting tomorrow, we'll be off the rest of the week. Happy 4th to you all. And we'll be back live on July 7th. In case you didn't know, July 4th is this Friday. And to get you in the spirit, here is Jennifer Coolidge in her role from Legally Blonde.
You look like the 4th of July. It makes me want a hot dog real bad.
Me too. Boy, does she speak for me. So we're opening the lines at 877-301-8970 as we prepare to skip town, or not skip town, but skip work for the rest of the week, asking you about your own holiday preparations. Marjorie said about food. It is food, but not just food. Sort of a summer beginning potpourri, all things 4th of July and beyond. For example, when do you brave the market basket aisles? And when you go, how do you select the best watermelon? Did Beth tell us a story about this today?
She did, but I don't really get this. Just don't buy one that's cut in half or cut in thirds.
If someone wants a whole one, that's the issue. Do you tap it on the side? Do you hold it up to your ear? What do you do? How about corn on the cob? Maybe you're hosting a big bash. How are you preparing? Are you planning, for example, to going to a demonstration with a burger in one hand and a sign in the other? We want to know about your July 4th plans and beyond. Maybe you feel differently about celebrating American independence right now. In any case, 877-301-8970. And one other topic I want subsumed within this, which we have discussed off and on, I wouldn't say it's quite an old chestnut. It's an older chestnut, is why is it that the vast majority of grilling in this country continues to be done by men? Do you have any explanation for why that is, Marjorie?
I think it's an opportunity for men to get away from the women in their lives. That's what I think. So? They go out on the back porch with the grill, the spatula, a couple of beers. You know, they get a break. They stand around the grill. Haven't you ever noticed that? If you go to like a big family get together or something on the holiday,
there's a guy-a-thon by the grill. The
guys are by the grill. Yeah, the guys are by the grill.
Why don't the women assert? I mean, for example, do you grill during
Griller inside making potato salad.
Oh. 877-301-8970. All things July 4th or beginning of summer that move you. Now, your solution, you were so proud of yourself this morning. We're talking about watermelon. Your solution was you don't buy whole watermelon.
You don't buy whole watermelon.
But some people do buy whole watermelon.
What is the point?
Can I tell you something?
All that stress to figure out if it's ripe or not ripe? You just buy one that's already cut in half and you can see by the color.
Okay, I've been buying whole watermelons for decades. I want to be clear.
And my watermelon are much better than your watermelon.
I have never ever gotten an unripe watermelon. I've gotten an overly ripe watermelon. You ever gotten an oh, you don't buy them because you buy them in the segment.
I buy them and buy the color.
Whatever.
Yeah, they last
forever. You squeeze
forever.
them? I squeeze them when they're already cut. The meat part of it. Do you do that?
No, I don't. I just look at the color of the watermelon.
And if it's too dark red, it's a problem? Is that what it is?
Well, I had a very dark one today.
I've
already
how
eaten
was
it.
that?
Well,
Thank
it was
you
delicious.
For sharing that. I appreciate
it was very good. It was better. Listen, I'm the fruit whisperer around here. We know that.
You are.
I am.
Do you know that? By the way, you've never asked me. I am a man.
Are you grilling on the 4th?
I am grilling, and I am really an extraordinary.
Okay, so
griller.
why are you out there grilling?
Why am I out there
Isn't
grilling?
it to get away with the family?
Because I don't know how to make potato salad. That's what the thing. No, actually, I enjoy it, and if there's any woman who happens to be there who wants to do a little grilling,
okay,
bring them on.
We talked to Stephen Reichlin. He's the grilling guy.
Oh, he's the grilling guru.
He's all guys. That's what he said, all guys.
He did say that.
Out there.
That was about 20 years ago we talked to him. How do you know it still is? It was like 15 years ago.
Because he's a grill master from coast to coast. Isn't he like a famous grill guy from coast to coast?
By the way, Benjamin in Brighton asked a very important question. Question on everyone's mind. I would agree with this. What are Jim's must-have fixins at the Cookout Fixins bar? Can I tell you what it is?
What?
A sliced thin red onion on a cheeseburger and chopped white onion on a hot dog. Those are the two most important add-ons to your traditional. Do you understand the difference there?
No, I do.
Sliced red onion on the cheeseburger
and chopped white onion on the hot dog. That's a good choice. That's a good choice.
Yeah, I'm not a relish. I have to be honest. Yeah. I don't want to offend anybody. I'm not really a relish kind of person. You know?
Yeah, I don't know anything about grilling. I don't know how to turn it on. I don't know how to turn it off. I know you have to get one of those big, huge propane things and lug it.
No, you can do a traditional grill. Where you just light the charcoal.
I want to do a gas grill.
Oh, the charcoal thing is so real and it tastes so much better. And it's so, I feel much more manly when I'm doing that than when I just turn on the 877-301-8970. So anything that relates to what is really the beginning of summer, which we consider to be today at 2 o'clock.
Here's a good idea. You smash a watermelon with a sledgehammer, and if it splatters to reach people 50 feet away, it is ripe.
Can I tell you one more thing before we get to the calls?
Yeah.
You don't spend as much time, good for you, on TikTok as I do. I'm not proud of it. I'm embarrassed. Yep. There are more creative yet simple ways to cut a watermelon so that the ultimate product looks like a piece of sculpture than anything. There are not millions. There are thousands of TikTok videos on creative watermelon chopping.
I'm not complete until I've learned to cut a watermelon.
Well, you say that because you don't know
a sculpture.
Because you've never seen it. If you had seen it, you wouldn't be so cavalier about the
I think that's
sculpting.
life-changing, Jim. Life-changing.
Okay,
Barbie is on the phone from Rhode Island. Thank you for calling, Barbie.
Hey, guys. I just want to tell you how much I love corn on the cob.
Oh, me too.
I'm telling you. My problem is, and maybe this is a personal opinion, but GMO has ruined our corn. So I'm very, very particular. I only buy organic corn on the cob, and I really don't keep it for more than a day. So I try to buy it the morning it was picked, or I try to buy it, the next day. So I think corn that's, from GMO seeds is garbage. It's not good for our bodies. And so I'm all about the organic. And I can get organic corn off the kernels now at Stop and Shop, and I can get organic corn frozen at Trader Joe's. So the organics are available, and my warning is beware of GMO.
I thought that was controversial, Barbie. I thought some people said we're overhyping the GMO problem. Corby Cummers said that.
Not with corn on the cob.
Not with corn on the cob? Okay.
Remember now, corn on the cob is, a carbohydrate, turns to sugar and all that jazz, right? So, it's got certain properties that I think the GMO is just...
Okay. So what's your strategy? Is it lots of butter and lots of salt, or you do something different?
Absolutely. If I'm trying to be healthy, honestly, because, I have to watch my weight and stuff like that, then I just eat it plain. No salt and no butter. You get good corn. You don't need butter, right?
I'm with Barbie on this.
Oh, no.
I understand it.
Dripping.
I certainly understand it, but...
Barbie, you're a person of
It
principle.
tastes great.
I like that in my corn eaters. Barbie, thank you very much for your call. We appreciate it. She knows what she likes.
She likes it. She likes it without butter. I think I gotta have tons of butter
she's
and
right.
tons of salt. And I roll the corn and the butter on the plate. It's great. Listen to this one. Men grilling, testosterone, cooking flesh over an open fire.
Wow.
There you go, Jim.
So Anonymous says, I'm boycotting the segment since I'm not allowed to talk about roasted vegetables. So there you go. That is, by the way.
That's my specialty.
But
roasted vegetables.
Grilling vegetables, when they have that little charred kind of experience on it. I have one of those little baskets. You'd be a little jealous. You can grill
you have a little
small
basket?
pieces of vegetables.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Actually, it's
Put them right where you want them.
877-301-89. So what you do, you criticize things that you don't know. I mean, I'm serious. Like the watermelon thing, you've never done that. Here's somebody who says, at Robin Amherst, the best single sign of a ripe watermelon, I never heard of this, is a big, bright yellow patch on one side.
That's true.
The side, it is? It was sitting
that was
on the
in Best
ground.
Ty Chell's column.
Not sure what it was?
Yes.
I didn't read it.
Yeah.
But it never fails. What does it say?
Okay, here's what they say in Beth Teichel's column, and she's an expert on watermelons too. She's not the watermelon whisperer. The watermelon should look good, be free of dents or gashes. When lifted, it should feel heavy for its size, and crucially,
bless you.
Excuse me.
So
when
sorry.
you turn it over, its ground spot should be a nice yellow color. The only thing is, I'm not sure what its ground spot is, but Rob says it's the side that was sitting on the ground.
Yeah, that's what he said.
So the side that was sitting on the ground should be a nice yellow color, and that is the trick.
Well, we apparently have some proof besides Beth. We have this farming influencer, Gardening with Hoss. Do you listen to Gardening with Hoss?
I don't, listening with Gardening
with some
Hoss.
tips for picking the perfect watermelon. Here it is.
I'm going to show you how to pick a ripe watermelon. First of all, if you find one with a sunspot on there, that is always a good sign. But the main thing you want to look for is that cream-colored belly on the other side. Nice and cream-colored. That is a surefire way to know you've got a ripe watermelon.
What language was he speaking?
Bill Clinton.
Cream-colored belly on the other side.
Yeah,
Schlad, yeah.
Bill Clinton language. But he says cream-colored, but the other person in Beth Teichel's column says yellow. So I think if you're in the range, beige, cream-colored, antique white, yellow, something like that.
Nice and cream-colored.
Nice and cream-colored.
I love that.
Okay. Let's go to Joan, who's calling from Cambridge. Hi, Joan.
Hello, Joan.
Hi. I just want to say that I grill. I love to grill.
Good for you.
So go ahead.
Now, I want to tell you, I hate to cook, but my husband will cook. So grilling is my contribution to cooking. And I do it year-round. I have like a special menu for Valentine's Day on the grill. I cook all year, and I do like meat and fish and chicken and corn on the cob. And I love it. And also, the other thing about it is it gets me away from everybody else.
Right.
So I can go, to the grill. We live in Cambridge. I have a deck. So I go up on the deck, and it's quiet, and I just, check my, whatever's on the grill, and it's kind of meditative, and I really like it. But it's the only kind of cooking I will ever do.
Can I tell you something? I live in Cambridge, too, and I grill on my deck as well, Joan. And that solitude you described,
I tell you,
unlike the sexism Marjorie was talking about, is fabulous. You just sit there or stand there with your grill. You listen to the beautiful sounds.
And get away from the women in your house.
And get away from the everything in your house.
Yeah.
So you're by yourself. Joan, that was a beautiful call. Very moving. Thank you very much for doing it. Good luck on Friday.
Thank you for calling, Joan. Here's another woman griller. She says, I am the grill master. My husband can't cook a thing, bless his heart. I'm self-taught and use a thermopen to make sure things are done to the point I need or desire. But I think it's hilarious. Whenever we have parties and the men come out, they start telling me at the grill what to do. They can't help themselves because apparently grilling requires mansplaining. It's just kind of funny.
It's quite true. By the way, this texter says what I've wanted to do almost my whole life and I've never done. I want to know if you've done it. The texter says, best watermelon is one that has a hole been drilled into it and a bottle of vodka has been added. It doesn't get any better. You ever done that? Supposedly, it's fabulous.
One of my best friend's mothers always used to do this. She would soak fruit in vodka and then put it in the drink. You know, a pineapple, cantaloupe, whatever. Soak it right in there.
Wow.
So you're kind of drinking booze-infused fruit.
But in light of the fact that you get pre-cut watermelon, you probably can't do that. Is that correct?
No, I can't do that. I have to do it with the cantaloupes and the pineapples.
Can you also explain, by the way, I believe I am better at finding ripe pineapples than you are. What is it? Don't get so upset. Marjorie's glaring
You
at
have
me.
never had a pineapple like my pineapples, Jim.
Your pineapples are good.
You admit it. You admit it. They're full of juice.
Actually, we should move on. I think I made a mistake.
You touched a nerve there, Jim.
I did, apparently.
I can't do much.
Okay.
But I can tell.
What I can do.
Give me a pineapple.
By the way, not
I'm
only
good to
are
go.
her ripe, most of them are upside down, which is really...
They're not upside down.
Thank you very much.
Ha, ha, ha.
Barbara in Gloucester, how are you, Barbara? Hello.
I'm great, and how are you?
I think we're well. Thank you for asking. Go ahead.
Awesome. So let's get back to that subject of the ripeness of the watermelon.
Please, yes.
So, the big mystery. So what I understand is, A, if it's got a big, flat, yellow part, means it's been resting in the patch, and that means it's sweet.
Okay.
But here's one more thing.
What is it?
If you can possibly get organic watermelon that has seeds, is the best watermelon for you to get because it hasn't been GMO'd to give Americans, of course, the comfort of having to, God forbid, I have to pull my teeth. You get it?
Oh, yes.
I think we do.
Try to find the stuff that actually has the seeds in it. It's much better for you. And, Jim, I have to tell you,
please,
the only kind of pickle that I can handle on my hot dog or my burger is that dill, baby. That thin, crisp dill pickle.
The crisp is the key.
My tartar sauce.
I'm with you. The crisp is the key to living, actually.
Yeah.
Barbara, that's a beautiful call. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
We have some sound, that we should play.
What do we have sound of?
This is the sound you're looking for when you whack a ripe watermelon. Here it is. That's the sound.
Sounds like somebody knocked on my door.
Can we hear that one more time, please? Now, if your watermelon makes the unripe sound, and we're going to play that for a second, when you whack it, it means it still needs time to ripen.
It's the exact same as the other one.
No, is it? Nope.
Okay, let's play them right in succession.
One is higher pitch.
Okay, don't tell Marjorie which you're playing first.
All right.
And she has to guess whether this is ripe or unripe. Go ahead, play one. Which was that?
That was the lower one, lower pitch.
What is that?
Ha ha ha.
You're so petty. You're so petty.
Because you always think I'm going to get it wrong.
That's correct.
Yeah. Can we have the thwack? The thwack is a good one.
No, we don't. So happy. Marjorie's happy because she's going on vacation in 10 minutes.
That's the sound of squishing the watermelon.
Okay, 877-301-8970. We really haven't answered any questions about the summer and July.
Have you planned ahead for your whole menu, knowing
Can I tell you,
like
the only
food
thing
the way
I'm
you
better
do?
at than grilling is planning the grilling.
Planning. Have you planned the grilling?
I have
indeed. But do share
I'm
your
not
menu.
Share that.
Share your menu. Come on.
Well, maybe I will. I am not someone, since you asked,
Yeah.
who believes in mixing items on the kebab.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, let's say you wouldn't eat this because you don't like fish. You eat swordfish. Do you eat swordfish?
I eat swordfish,
This is
yeah.
sort of
I eat
not
some
fishy.
fish. Yeah,
okay.
not fishy.
Now, let's assume someone says, I want my basic onion and like a red pepper and swordfish kebab.
Can't do it?
You can do it. But the perfect way to do it is not to mix them all up.
Oh, okay.
The perfect way is on one kebab, your swordfish. On one kebab, your onion. And on one kebab, your red peppers. Now, why is that, Marjorie? I'll explain that to you since you asked.
Why is
Because
that,
they
Jim?
all take different lengths of time to cook.
Oh.
So you wouldn't want, for
You're a
example,
sly dog.
let me just say this.
Okay.
A red pepper cooks a lot faster than onion. Does it not? You know why? Because onion is harder than a red pepper. So if you cook it separately, am I boring you with this?
No.
I think I am.
No, you don't.
The red pepper cooks earlier. You take it off the grill. And then you take off the onion at a later moment. And then if people choose to have red pepper, onion, and swordfish, they can mix them all up kind of thing.
That's very good.
Thank you.
My strategy is I hope that people will come to my house who know how to turn on the grill and cook something.
You have a propane
That's
grill
my
at your
strategy.
house?
I have a propane grill.
Is that legal?
Yes.
You sure it's legal? You don't know. In Brookline.
You can have a small one, not a big one.
She's making this up, I can
You can
tell.
have a small one, but this is
Whenever Marjorie doesn't know something and she makes it up, she doesn't make eye contact with me, which is what she just did. So she's
I was
now
talking
worried.
about down the Cape.
Down
Yes.
the Cape.
I'm hoping people come and they rescue me.
Okay, let's take one or two more calls.
Hi, Dan.
Hello, Dan, somewhere in Massachusetts. Hello.
No, I'm in Cambridge.
Oh, you are? Well, that's good to hear. Hello.
Yep, I am. I just wanted to say that if you want good sweet corn, first of all, you should go out to some farm stand that
Absolutely.
has picked it that day.
I agree with that.
And secondly, when you get it home, if you're not going to eat it right away, pop it in the microwave for about 2.5 to 3 minutes for each ear on high. And what that does is it kills the enzymes that convert the sugars into starch. So it stays a lot sweeter. Keep it in the wrap. Don't take the don't take the husks off, and then you can pop it in the fridge, and it'll be good for at least a few more days.
Really? I've never heard that
Nor
before.
had I.
Put it in the microwave for 2.5 to 3 minutes?
Yeah.
It wouldn't like set it on fire or something? Wow.
No. It does a really great job at keeping the stuff sweet. It just kills the enzymes that convert the sugars into the starch.
I'm going to try that.
It stays sweet.
That's the Canterbridge trick.
Thank you for that, Dan. Appreciate it. By the way, when you say it won't catch fire, if you put it in the microwave in aluminum foil, it will catch fire.
Did you ever try to smoke corn silk when you were little?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to do that, Dan. Dan, that was excellent advice. Thank you for your call. Appreciate it. What'd you say?
Thank you. Do you ever smoke corn silk when you were little?
No.
We tried to do that.
Was it like a drug kind of thing?
No, it's not a drug.
Obviously
It's just you were
did it,
trying to. You
right?
didn't have any cigarettes. We were pretending you were
So
going to
you
smoke
did it, right?
cigarettes. I did it a couple of times. It was
Sure you
horrible.
did. Of course
Horrible. Kathleen from North Brookfield, she does the grilling too. It gives me a quiet time to drink a beer and chill while I keep an eye on the food. I think that's it. It's the serenity of the mastering of the grill.
What's that serenity thing that Catholics do? What's that thing?
Oh, that's the Alcoholics Anonymous prayer.
Oh, is that AA? Okay.
Yeah, help
Serenity
me
prayer?
to accept what I can't change or change the things I can or something like that. God grant me serenity to...
So it's a different kind of serenity,
that's it. That's the AA prayer, which, by the way, lots of people use for all sorts of different things. Overeaters Anonymous uses that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
What do you mean? Like all kind of addiction kinds of things?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, because it works in a lot of other different contexts.
Okay. Now, somebody who I'm guessing, because he's sort of a farm boy kind of thing, you're a farm kind of, you are. Didn't you
with a few animals.
Did you grow up on something or a farm?
With a few animals.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your technique if you want a whole watermelon as opposed to a sliced watermelon? Look at this
You
face.
just don't do it. Just buy a sliced one,
Am I
right?
talking
Make life
to Sharon?
easy.
How do you do it?
I go with Marjorie. We pick out, we fight over the reddest one, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
The tapping and thumping, I didn't hear a difference there.
No.
I don't know
Well,
how
it was
to do
pitch.
that.
It was pitch.
Which one's that, Marjorie?
Well, the second one was...
They have no...
I wasn't paying attention. Try it one more time.
Okay, what's that?
The first one was lower than the second one.
What does lower mean?
Lower pitch.
What? Okay, and is that right or not right?
It's lower than ha.
I understand that. This is not a musical quiz. Is it riper or not riper?
You can tell the pitch.
Which is riper, the lower or the higher?
Oh, the lower. I don't know.
Oh, well, then what good is it?
Well,
who cares?
I was just trying to identify the pitch.
Who cares if you know it's a lower pitch?
Lower would be not ripe yet, right? Because it's still thicker.
We don't know because we've goofed it up. I'll look up Beth Teich's.
No, we didn't goof up anything, actually.
I was just identifying the pitch. I don't know what it means for the watermelon.
You grill on July 4th? Let's get to it here,
No,
Jared.
I just go to places where they're grilling.
Exactly.
Boy, what a dismissive
Exactly. Or I have people come up to my house and then they grill for me. That's what I like.
Say something briefly, if I may. Do you know how absurd it is that you were so proud that you knew the lower versus the higher pitch when you don't have any idea what either of them...
We don't give a crap about your opinion.
What, you don't know what either of them
showing off
signifies?
my pitch skills.
You should have been our other judge on Sing That Thing.
That's right. That's right. I have very good pitch.
Oh, Sing That Thing. I missed that show.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a
a
great
fun
show you were on. Okay, what are you doing on the show here today?
So we're going to be talking to the MFA, as we do every month now, as we look at this countdown to 2026.
The new guy?
The 200, but we're going to have a curator and an artist talking about the passage of the Delaware, because we've been looking at singular pieces of art and how they relate to the American Revolution.
Okay.
And then Julia Swanson is always talking to us about public art. This time she's on the move to New Bedford, very close to Fall River, obviously. So she's going to be talking about public art there. And then Andre Osterman, who wrote Call Me By Your Name, has a new book of 3 novellas. So he's going to be talking about that.
Oh, that was a big hit book and movie.
Yes, it was. And this one also includes romance and also includes Italy, like Call Me By Your Name.
Oh.
Will you be offended if I give you a little advice how to liven up that show of yours? If you play some of those watermelon knocking sounds for your guests.
I regret to inform you that I've goofed this up completely.
Oh, what a shock that is.
It was a dull thump versus a hollow sound.
Exactly, fine. Can we share these with Jared's producers?
I don't know. Do you want to try it one more time, dull versus hollow?
Yeah, sure will.
But is the hollow ripe or not?
Hollow sound suggests it's not as dense and therefore riper.
Ask Julia Swanson what she thinks about it. Can you do that? I'll be listening.
I'll ask Andre also.
Goodbye.
Okay.
See you around, Jared.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Time off. Happy 4th.
Oh, you too.
Thank you
July
very
4th.
much.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you very much for tuning
you're a little
in.
Embarrassed. That's really sad. I mean, really, you were so proud because you understood the sounds, but you had no idea what they meant. So what is the point?
You gotta be yourself, Jim. Gotta be true to yourself.
Okay, fine.
I try.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. You can check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we're going to hear from filmmaker Ken Burns on the American Revolution, and vice columnist Meredith Goldstein will be with us as well, rapper Paul Willis, and Columbia Journalism School Dean Jelani Cobb, and much more. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, additional support from Nia Harmon. Patrick Lally ran our YouTube stream today. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jane Bologna. We are going to be off until next Monday, but we're going to be playing best of. I think it's some pretty good shows all week long. Stay tuned to The Culture Show with Jared Bowen starting immediately after us on 89.7 GBH. Good luck with all your separate kebabs. So you only have onions on one.
The fact that you are ridiculing me after this watermelon disaster.
Don't let them touch each other.
Takes nerve.
Okay.
Happy July 4th to all of you, including Marjorie.
Bye.
Knock, knock, knock. It's lower. It's a lower sound, whatever that means. Have a great July 4th. Bye.
Watermelon. What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, commemorating 250 years of history, independence, and innovation since the American Revolution. Learn more at massachusetts250.org. Looking for a little grit to start your week? Then get ready for a Monday night crime spree. Catch Midsummer Murders at 8, Dalgleish at 9, and Undercover at 10. Tonight on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.